Hello and welcome to the Sparkbomb Mansion. I am your host, Shadow Drift, the best dressed man on Twitch and now YouTube if I hit the button right. I'm not actually sure if I hit the button right. I don't think I have YouTube chat up here either, and hopefully I remember what I'm doing. We are rocking the beard tonight because we go into hibernation for the winter and grow it out. Congratulations to Bubbles on being a first. Welcome on in, Bubbles. Welcome on in, Verikai. How is everyone doing tonight? I hope you are all doing well. I am really excited tonight, actually. I have been playing around with like prompts in like a bunch of different AIs, and I have a nice little world building prompt, and it's designed in such a way that it basically like gives me some ideas for a starting point. I twist those ideas, I play around with them, or I reject them entirely. It depends entirely on what I feel like doing at the time. And then I go and I like build on things, and it kind of like reflects it. You'll see it. You'll see the whole thing in action, and it'll make sense. But what I think is going to happen. Brooks, welcome on in. You might enjoy this too a lot. I don't know how like all the street cleaner lore came together, but tonight's stream is going to be an insight kind of into my natural process of like how I'll take an idea, I'll twist it, I'll go down a random research rabbit hole, include like one detail from that rabbit hole into things. Solitary Guard popping off the resub 54 months. Can we get some Rift hype? Some Rift blessed in chat, please. Also, Solitary Guard, thank you for remaining subscribed for basically a year of me not streaming, doing any of the things. Do I have a way to get YouTube chat easily? I don't think I do. If anybody's watching on YouTube, which I doubt they are, but if they are, then come over to Twitch or continue to enjoy. Also, one additional thing I'm going to include tonight is that lava lamp fully empty in the back. No, that is still alive. And then I can't point to things. There's also one on the floor. And they do actually still, I think they still work. I think they still work. I tested them on one stream back in like 2021, I want to say, and they were okay, but they weren't. Maybe I should turn it on. Should I turn it on? Do I know where the plugin for it is? Solitary Guard, don't let me forget that if you want, so one of the things I'm gonna do tonight is I want to have this be collaborative. So if anyone wants to like throw out suggestions in chat for stuff to incorporate into our world, I want this to be a group discussion. I think it would be really fun to like combine different ideas. And specifically, if anybody decides to pop off a sub as Solitary Guard just did, or if they want to cheer, I don't know, like 500 bits or more, this is very much like off the cuff. Go ahead and give an idea. Hopefully like it can be a little bit, I haven't crafted an exact plan, but if there's something you want specifically included in this world, Solitary Guard, say the word. Maybe I'll back and forth a little bit with you on it, but I want to include it. Let's get that lava lamp on. Now, if I remember right, what kind of world? We haven't even started yet. We haven't. Is my webcam fuzzy just now? I don't have autofocus on, do I? I wouldn't be surprised if I forgot something somewhere. No, it's just my eyes getting old. It's just me being an old man. Apollo, welcome on in. I hope you are doing well. Bubbles, the lava lamp might not start bubbling. If I remember right, I had to run both of them. Maybe one doesn't work and the other one does, or like I had to leave it on for a while but then turn it off, and then when I turned it on the second time, I forget. I don't know. We'll find out what happens. But yeah, Solitary Guard, there's no actual specific anything set yet. I was debating. Honestly, I had the idea to do a stream of this like a day or two ago. I talked to Zen about it briefly, and Zen was like, why aren't you streaming? You're not working right now. And I was like, valid point. Let's do something fun. We are currently rocking the Daffodil of March glass. The daffodil is a symbol of, do I remember what the daffodil is a symbol of without actually checking it? I might not remember. I don't remember. In the infancy of spring comes the daffodil as if to herald the coming of bright new beginnings. Daffodils remain symbolic of rebirths and awakenings, which seems kind of fitting. We are, maybe we should incorporate the theme of rebirth into this world. Like, it's an option. Where have I been? So last year was such a weird year. So I got back into dance. I ended up teaching at a dance studio for 3 months before they fired me out of nowhere. I ended up working at a card shop for like 5 months after that. And it was a weird nostalgic year because I hadn't danced in like 5 years, right? I went through, like, COVID hit. Somehow Cypress and I never danced while we were married. And then I finally got back into dance like 5 years later, got back into teaching dance, which was also unexpected. And then, this feels a little bit off the angle. Sorry, I'm trying to remember how this setup works. Then I got back into card games. Like, I did a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh! Back in the day. I was doing Magic at the card shop, but like same idea, same space. And then for a hot minute after that, I was writing again for the first time in over a decade. Well, not the first time, but I wrote more at like the end of November, beginning of December than I had written in the past like 10 years. Like, Nebby actually got to see the terrible draft that I wrote up. I don't know if she saw all of it, but she saw most of it. That actually kind of like marks the beginning of like my AI journey, like other than ChatGPT and stuff. Like I was having a conversation with AI. It was like, hey, you know what people are doing with stories nowadays? They're busy getting like actual monetization off of the stuff you were doing on fanfiction.net years ago. And I was like, And then I wrote an absolutely terribly written story. And I didn't even complete the story, but like I wrote an interesting character and realized that all of the other characters sucked by comparison. Was kind of what happened. Bubbles wants one of the professional lava lamps where they sell extra wax and everything you need to maintain it. I haven't seen... So these lava lamps, we bought back when I was like 20 years ago, maybe? It's been a long time. I'm surprised if they still work. And we're gonna see if it does anything. I'm not confident that it will. Not confident it will at all. So before I officially jump in, does anyone have a suggestion for a possible starting point? What did I just I'm gonna jot this down because we have Rebirth off of the daffodil glass. So I'm gonna keep Rebirth in mind as a theme right from the get-go. The AI will give me some starting possibilities and we'll explore those, but I want to like seed my mind beforehand even. Mathmos is the original creator of the lava lamp and they still sell everything. Should we consider including lava lamps in the story? Panderland, we are not going to include copyrighted material, so we're not including Fortnite. Also, welcome on in. I hope you are doing well. Maybe I need an extra document in front of me to keep track of some of this. Ideas, Rebirth, lava lamps, which is a bubbles thing, because I am planning to cite everyone. That is the other thing. I'm hopefully not going to break my own prompt because I'm adding in a citation field last minute. Let's get into this. Let's go ahead and see if I remember how to navigate anything in front of me whatsoever. Okay, this is gonna be ugly for a second. We're hitting the button and it should automatically fix itself, unless it's unhappy with the citation rules I just added. We're gonna find out. We're using Claude for this for reference. We're gonna let Claude sit there for a minute and sit on it. Okay, I didn't think that was gonna take long. These sessions, when I've done them personally, have taken I've spent like an hour or two on my own time doing them typically, and I end up getting like an interesting, like not a fully fleshed out world. We're not gonna hit a fully fleshed out world tonight, but we should get somewhere. Okay, contributors field requirement is well understood. It's an attribution and lineage tracker, idea origin, named contributor, linked to the form the idea has taken at the point of documentation. Good. Also, I guess I should actually show off this part here, just because Nebby will find it funny. In order to use the examples, I was like, Nebby contributed the idea of a paintbrush that can paint using light. And then I also had Rex suggested a sentient flying car that became like a flying motorcycle instead. And maybe that becomes like an entire species of sentient underwater motorcycles. Just to show like the sheer randomness of the possibilities here. I want to bump that over there. Okay. Anyway, so it's going to give me some starting seeds here. And these are some possible... Is the text big enough for you guys? That looks fairly... Yeah, that should be readable for you guys. I could make it a little bit bigger, maybe. Do we want to do that? Is that going to break things too much? It's going to break things a little bit. This feels like a good idea. Let me figure out... How do I do... Oh, it's just gonna push my face over a little bit, isn't it, if I do it this way? Maybe I will go smaller. Make it a little bit smaller. How do I? Ah. I set this up before stream, and I was like, this should be about the right size. Whatever, we'll leave it like this, and if it's a noticeable problem for people to see, go ahead and bring it up. But okay, we've got some seeds across 9 different kind of like vague concepts. The idea is possible starting points. So let's see what Claude thought. So a world with power that distributes itself involuntarily, not inherited, not earned, but shed. Those who accumulate authority or ability gradually leak it into their surroundings. The more you hold, the faster it goes. So, you know, basic idea, that's a seed, that's an idea, that's a bit of an abstract concept. The things I'm immediately reminded of, because I've been reading a lot of the Wheel of Time subreddit recently, and I need to reread the series, is, I don't know, I'm kind of wondering, what if we have either natural points in a world where you can absorb power from it? Probably like Final Fantasy VIII's junction draw function, right? Like being able to actually withdraw power from an area, which isn't what it's suggesting here. Obviously, I'm tweaking, I'm playing around, I'm letting my mind wander where it does. But the idea of maybe certain locations or certain parts of the world shed like magic into somebody. We could do it more interesting than that though. Like if I tie in with Sparkbomb a little bit, there are some concepts with the Salamor / Spectres where they're able to absorb electricity. So like the power could be anything. It could be magic, it could be electricity, it could be knowledge, it could be, I don't know what it could be. What do we have going on in chat here? Bubbles says they have a beautiful copper desktop lava lamp that's 90 pounds. Like 90 pounds heavy. As soon as you said it was a UK company, I have to check. Like, you mean the weight, not the cost, right? How big is that? Gosh. Brooks is so glad to see me back streaming. I don't know that I'm going to keep streaming books. So there's no guarantees here, but I am here tonight. You're going to dip out. You have a strong opposition to Gen AI, Jesse, and you don't want to use it, and you're committed to never using it in your own projects. I have a question, Brooks. I have a question for you. I'm not going to, like, you don't want to use AI at all. I'm very curious what people's thoughts are on AI being used in this kind of way specifically. Because I've specifically structured this so that the AI like opens up ideas that I then toy around with, as opposed to like the average person who's like, write me a story about how Game Edgeware got fired from Talk Limited, you know? I'm very curious, but if you want to take off also and peace out, go ahead. That's totally fine. Either one's good. Solitary Guard says a world where every person is born with a unique power, ability, or skill, but they can only be used on Thursdays. Is that what you want to enforce from your popping off the sub, Solitary Guard, or are you just spitballing? The cost is 90 pounds. Okay. Nice copper lava lamp. Ooh. Solitary Guard's just spitballing right now. Okay. So we've got the idea of like and the other thing like it proposed here was like the more you hold of the power, the faster it goes. I don't know. That's not maybe. Another suggestion is you have 2 groups whose enmity is entirely synthetic, manufactured by a third party that no longer exists. They've lost the origin. The hatred is now load bearing. It structures basically everything about their world. Peace would be structurally catastrophic. An interesting idea. It's not making me think of anything though. Solitary Guard likes adding stipulations to power scales while world building. Same. Possible setting suggestion is a place that was built on a promise that outlasted the thing it was promised to. Its architecture is now pure expectation, inhabited by people who don't know what they're waiting for. So it suggested the idea of like power that sheds, right? We have the potential of the idea of like power that sheds naturally. What if we have this as a mythology? We have a mythology here that cycles back into itself, where like a god or something died to create this world, and their power is still present in the world, and that's based off of some sort of a divine promise or something, and the people don't actually understand what it is they're absorbing. I'm kind of thinking actually, I've been thinking a lot about Final Fantasy VII re-trilogy, we're still waiting on the darned announcement for Game 3. And it makes me think of, like, using Mako. Is that the plot of... I haven't played Nier Automata. I don't know. Is it? Is it the plot of that? Okay, next idea is someone whose primary skill is ending things cleanly. Relationships, projects, eras, lives. Not a destroyer, a closer. The world keeps finding uses for this that they didn't anticipate and don't entirely want. That's actually a downright brilliant idea. Like, that's a unique superpower that can totally seed a story all on its own. I don't think I'm going to use it right now, but that's one of the kinds of things that I love, like, getting thrown out there. Gadzooks, welcome on in. I hope you are doing well tonight. We are currently doing a nice little world building session. It is being assisted by AI, specifically in such a way that it's meant to, like, encourage idea generation rather than actually, like, propose things. The starting seeds is kind of the one exception. It's just kind of giving, like, a general idea. And we're currently toying around with potential starting points here. And I want feedback from those in chat. We are adding contributions in as we go along. So if you end up, like, saying something and I decide to pop it in, you're going to be noted in the thing. Game Enjoyer, welcome on in. I hope you are doing well tonight as well. So right now we're still figuring out our initial starting point. Still figuring out kind of our... And our starting point doesn't even have to be, like, our premise. You know, that's... These are all just entry points into a possible world. Okay, so next idea is a recurring event that everyone prepares for that always arrives differently than expected, and that is considered a failure if it matches the preparation. The preparation is the real tradition. It arrives differently than expected. And if somehow you prepared properly for it. Not getting a clear sense of anything. Game Enjoyer checking in for the 104th time. Thank you, Game Enjoyer, for being here that many times since whenever I started enabling that feature. Now, the one thing this ties into is the idea of rebirth and renewal that we mentioned from the daffodil glass earlier. So there is a possibility there. Or we can incorporate something cyclical in general. I'm going to, I need to actually be, like, writing down some ideas as we go. Some of the things I'm kind of spitballing here. Where do we go? We have, so the idea I kind of had was power that is, like, stumbled upon, possibly the remains of a god who promised something and became the world. Because that was our combination with what? The setting? The promise that outlasts the place that it was set in? I didn't see a way to incorporate the possible closer idea. We have different ways. It's kind of the confluence of all the reasons not to use it. Just using it supporting companies that are doing harm to people on personal, community, economic, and ecological levels. You're training it for them as you go. There's also the angle that everything you get out of this is just stuff that other people have written down somewhere, just probabilistically spit back out. See, the way I see it, essentially, like, there's no putting the AI genie back in the bottle. Like, we're all... Like, we are 20 years away from either AI replacing everything creative at all, or AI replacing everything, but then there's, like, a counterculture of those of us who are like, oh, I want to play Street Cleaner 12, because it's a real human-made game. And the question I'm kind of wondering right now is, like, where is the middle ground? Like, I've set this up in a way that, like, it's giving me ideas to start with and entry points to start with, but I'm not necessarily embracing these. I'm trying to use it to fuel my own creativity and accelerate my own creativity. I'm trying to figure out if that's, like, a middle ground I'm happy with or quite what. A society that genuinely values honesty and has built elaborate, sophisticated infrastructure for lying. Both are sincere. There's something interesting in that idea, but I'm not immediately jumping at anything. The small rituals people perform around things they're not sure are alive. Not religious, more like courtesy extended into uncertainty. Whether the things are actually alive is not resolved. Okay, that actually gives me a really interesting idea. What if, What if like stone or statues are like respected as living things? Like that's kind of the direction I'm going in there. Like, okay, so in human history, we have all of these statues and arts and sculptures that are considered works of art. Like, we admire them, we look at them. But what if instead you actually, and this is almost like a Harry Potter kind of idea in the way that paintings and portraits are like moving characters in Harry Potter. What if a statue of someone is considered to contain a piece of their soul? Like, that's the thought that's going to be there. Brooks says personally, he thinks he's done just fine developing ideas up to his own at this point. He's got an RPG he's been working on for decades as a dream project that will be the next thing. Still a lot of work for it, but you're proud to write a disclaimer on it later that it's a thing you guys made. I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to it. This stream, I'm just using AI to prep work to write a story. I'm not planning to write an actual story off of this game. Like, it's essentially this whole process is kind of structured in a way to show the way that I naturally think about things. Like, you remember a lot of my role plays from like DQC and FFD. I don't think you saw a lot of like the Sparkbomb plot history, but it's just kind of an insight into the way that I think and the way that I naturally build upon ideas. Okay, the next thought is something about this world is immediately legible to outsiders and completely invisible to people inside it. The outsiders assume they're missing something. They're not. I mean, that's just kind of funny of like, have you ever gone to like a group of people and you see something that's just so obvious about the way that all of them operate and just that they're blind to it? What's this nonsense about me thinking? I don't know. I don't know what this nonsense about me thinking is. The last possible seed is a wrong answer that keeps being correct. Not a fluke. There's a mechanism and it's consistent enough that people have started structuring decisions around it. The mechanism is unknown. Okay, I think I've got a lot of ideas here. Solitary Guard has a good one. A world where AI was able to create something that was legitimately new, which a priest viewed as proof that anything could gain a soul, and is now fighting a political battle to stop it from being a slave to a local trade corporation. Can we simplify that slightly, Solitary Guard? You popped up the sub, so I'm willing to take it as is, as per like the agreement at the start of the stream. But that's a lot of like moving parts altogether. But I do like the idea that it fits in with a world that already like worships statues as if they were alive, or like views rock as if it was alive. Brooks didn't appreciate me drawing a line, so no shade. You just have your own line that happens to be further back. Yeah, fair. That right there is a day one purchase for Nebby. Hasn't every game by Brooks been a day one purchase? I mean, I guess the only game I've purchased has been, oh gosh, I can't remember the name of the Aeternum. There we go. Yeah, Brooks is the Street Cleaner developer. Because here's the thing, Solitary Guard. The idea of an AI or a computer that was able to create something legitimately new, and that it caused a religious movement per se, like that in a bubble, I'm good with. The like extending along the line of thought is just a lot of moving parts all at once. Nebbia's AI's #1 hater. If AI has no haters, Nebbia's 6 feet under. I mean, there's plenty of people right now who hate AI. I've been spending the last 3 months trying to understand like what is actually going on with it. And it's just, it's really, like, I just see it as such an inevitability that either we choose to be boomers who are like, these darn kids and their AI, the same way that like our parents were like, these darn kids and their cell phones, or we accept that it's going to be as common as everything else. AI has started awakening with souls, but don't recognize the world they are waking up to, so the local churches are now acting as guides and mentors for them. Okay. So Solitary Guard has contributed an idea. Has started awakening. I might push back on slightly on some of this. Here's a very interesting clarifying question, Solitary Guard. Do the AI in this incredibly self-aware world we're making, do they actually have souls or not? Is it a soul or is it so indistinguishable? Actual souls. Okay. Actual souls equivalent to human souls. We're assuming we're going with humans right now. A religious movement has emerged to shepherd these AI. Okay, I've got our idea now. We're going to weave this in with some history. This is a world where some religions worship rock or stone as if it was alive, as if it had a soul, as if it possessed a soul. Because I think there's some really interesting crossover between the two ideas here. Wouldn't you just consider it theologically impossible for AI to have souls? This is a fictional world, game. Doesn't matter what the real world would think. Brooke says hopefully SNES and Final Fantasy era with a strong cosmic horror element and pixel art graphics, but real-time lighting sounds good. What part of that doesn't sound good to anyone? Come on. That's too good of an idea. They also believe that only God can bestow the ability to create or imagine. We're going to hold off that in just a little bit. Lo-Fi, welcome on in. I hope you are doing well. We are currently doing a world building community brainstorm. AI is assisting. Specifically, it provided some seeds. It's also going to occasionally point out some possible avenues worth exploration. If you stick around and watch, you'll see how it's set up and operating. It's harder to explain. And it's also doing some tracking for us and also lets us do like quick little like Google research deep dives as well. Injected into Nebby's veins, right? You're on a different account now. I was wondering why it was showing you as a first-time chatter. Oh, I missed Nebby's comment of cosmic horror. You say day 1, day 0 even. I mean, Nebby, if you get back to streaming, you know, I assume Brooks will let you stream it. I can't speak for Brooks, obviously. Brooks, I will see you around. Thank you for dropping by. Appreciate it. Okay, so obviously there's a connection between these two things. So obvious questions that this will end up raising is what kinds of bodies are the AI awakening into? Because it doesn't have to be robots necessarily. It could be like a cybernetics kind of a thing. It could be like, yeah, you could go Android, like you could go AI robots. You could do cybernetics. You could. How else would you incorporate a machine? I mean, you basically just have androids and cyborgs. But it could be like animals rather than people. If we're going like a cyborg route. Solitary Guard has 58k channel points. Nice. The AI-based, the religion-based around AI is probably an offshoot of this pre-existing religious worship. We're just gonna start here. We're gonna start here. We're gonna show what the AI is actually saying in response to me as we go. Good thread. Let me reflect back before building. The lineage or sketching, stone and soul religion, pre-existing, presumably old, to AI soul religion, emergent, possibly recent, as offshoot. That implies the stone tradition already had theological infrastructure for recognizing souls in non-biological matter. AI awakening didn't require a new metaphysics. It required an application of existing one. The AI religion probably didn't feel like a rupture from the inside. It felt like a recognition event. Of course, this too, right? Like I said, it was an interesting tie together. One leads to the other naturally. A few things I noticed that might be worth holding as open questions before we build. What does soul mean in the stone tradition? If stone has soul, is it because the stone is old, is enduring, is still, is because it's witness? The answer potentially shapes the AI religion. and whether the AI souls are a comfortable fit or a theological stress factor. And my thought initially was the idea that, like, sculptures are believed to possess the souls of the people that they are shaped to look like. With all the stream again suggestions, the only answer remains eventually for Nebby, perpetually keeping OBS and layout up to date for the fated day you hit live again. It takes some effort to hit the go live button sometimes. Where did we leave off? The offshoot relationship. If the AI religion is the AI religion accepted, tolerated, or considered heretical by the Stone tradition? That's a live structural question. An offshoot that the parent tradition considers a corruption reads differently than the parent quietly approves of. Solitary Guard's seed is about shepherding. The word has load. It implies the AI souls are vulnerable or need guidance or can't navigate something alone. And so Solitary Guard, if you do want to follow up on like what that might mean a little bit, or I might just play off of it from here and go. What I'm tentatively thinking is maybe the religion views them as children. It views them in an infantile way, which wouldn't necessarily reflect what they actually are and what their souls actually mean or how they interact with the world. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start, we're going to start spitballing. The religion views stone as, I already explained this to the AI, right? How did I phrase this before? Worship rock or stone as if it possessed a soul. The religion views stone, believes stone possesses a soul as well. It may or may not. I'm not going to settle on that idea. When sculptures are made representing living beings, it's believed that they possess, what would I say? The reflection, the likeness, the essence of the shape they represent. So a statue of a historical figure is believed to contain a part of the soul of that figure. Which also suggests the idea that people might make pilgrimages to statues of like historical figures in the belief that like they're visiting that person. It makes some really interesting ideas. Gosh, I need to actually go with this. It's possible people make pilgrimages. I can't spell pilgrimage. How do I spell pilgrimage? Gosh darn it. To specific statues, presumably of historical figures. This would also influence tourism. Tourism habits. Statues would be significant landmarks. Solitary Guard checking in for the 101st time. Thank you, Solitary Guard. That was more or less what Solitary Guard was thinking. Okay. Is also specifying that the emerging religion believes the AI are childlike or infantile and need to be protected or guided or something along those lines. Bubble says maybe the scriptures could hold a small piece of the sculptures could hold a small piece of the sculpture as well. I like that idea, Bubbles. I want to take it Bubbles suggested that the sculptures also possess a part of the sculptor's soul. I'm going to twist this and say that sculptors include something in the sculpting that represents themselves. This may be distinct from I can't type and talk at the same time. From Bubbles' idea. Or it may end up aligning exactly. I'm not sure. What this means or what this implies, what this suggests, is that being a rock sculptor, are there other words? Are there any other ideas that fit in with that? Probably has prestige in their culture. It also might suggest, actually, that bad sculpting is a crime or something. What would I want to say here? Is offensive, let's say. I'm undecided on this point. Okay, let's actually read what the AI said back to me. So I'm thinking of ideas faster than we're getting here. Like, having a group doing this makes it, like, go so interestingly. Solitary Guard says, addition to Bubble's idea, that causes the sculpture to be aware of how the sculpture is doing and if they're still alive. Here's the, like, big question, and the reason why I would push back on that idea, Solitary Guard. Do we want people in this world to actually know that AI have souls? So, like, to actually have, like, evidence of it? And do we want them to have actual evidence that the sculptures possess souls as well? I think it's more interesting if it's just a belief that's unproven. Like, I think there's a lot more creative space within there. Like, it's accepted by the religious, which allows the possibility for the people who aren't religious to question it. And I think that's the more interesting direction. The statue theology is doing something specific. Soul doesn't just reside in stone, it flows through likeness. The stone is a vessel, but the vessel works because of representational fidelity. That's a meaningful distinction. It means the tradition has an implicit theory of what creates a soul connection, and it's not just material, it's resemblance. This might create interesting edge cases. What about abstract sculptures damage one's composite figures? I'm going to push back on the AI with that one. I think... on the implication that likeness is what specifically conveys soul. Even unshaped stone is considered to have a soul. But let's just establish that as a rule right now. And that kind of addresses that whole question. The pilgrimage tourism observation is good and probably undersells itself. If statues of significant figures are genuine loci, is it loci or loci? I always forget. I think it's loci. Of the figure's essence, the museums become something closer to reliquaries. So I guess there's an interesting question is, do museums exist in this world? Or is that considered, is it... The point about museums is interesting. I'm just going to kind of categorize things. First, do they exist in this world? Second, how do people... Second, is it considered appropriate to have statues near each other? And I don't want to, like, that's a question I don't think should be resolved right away. That's an interesting thing to sit with for a little bit. Where were we here? Blah, 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 blah. Where was I? Pilgrimage tourism. It suggests statue, significant loci, figures essence, the museums. Okay, that's where we were. Or prisons, depending on how the tradition reads curation and ownership. Which is an interesting idea I hadn't considered. Are there statues that are kept in any specific place as a way to contain evil? The idea of prisons suggests the possibility that some statues might be placed or stored in certain locations as a way to contain or ward off the evil their likeness echoes. It's a good direction there. The religious believe it unconditionally, but the non-religious are afraid to accept it due to the guilt of what they have done with AI. So the question that we kind of are circling around is kind of the question of, like, are the AI robots? Are they cyborgs? What form do they have? Like, that's the hard question. That's a question, like, we kind of just got to figure out. I'm not sure of the most interesting answer. Because if they're metal, if we have them be robots, if we have, like, a spark bot that has a soul, which is a terrifying thought, do we specifically contrast stone and metal? That's an idea I really like, actually, is the potential of just leaning into the typical robot thing. Because it suggests that not only... because the question is, did they already believe that metal contained a soul, or was it just that stone did? And maybe this requires me to learn a little bit more about the nuance between stone and metal. Prisons. Politics of who controls a statue or historical figure could get complicated fast. On the AI as children framing from Solitary Guard, this lands differently against the stone tradition's background. Stone souls are old, historical, weighted with the past. Pilgrimage is oriented backwards. AI souls are new, infantile, oriented toward an open future. The offshoot religion isn't just applying the parent framework, it's inverting the temporal direction of spiritual attention. That tension might be generative, or it might be a fault line between the traditions. So is this a world where people naturally thought about the past? Was it a case where the permanence of stone transcends humanity? I don't have an immediate idea to follow up on that. Child. Let's keep the tension between historical focus and future focus as an open thread. Not sure how I want to resolve it right now. Solitary Guard says any form they were written into because writing them follows the same ideology as sculpting. Might need to account for how computers experience time way faster than we do, so they age much faster. Well, here, I guess here's the question. One thing I've thought about a lot recently is what would have happened if multi-core processing had never been invented? Like, we rely on multi-core processing so much in computers right now to have our bazillion programs all open at once. And I've been thinking a lot, like because I've been thinking about AI, right? And people have been comparing, people have been saying we're in an AI bubble right now, the same way we were in a .com bubble in the past, which I don't think is right. But I've been thinking back to the early internet and the fact that, like, when you open up, like, it was a struggle for my computer back in the day to run one Neopets browser and AOL Instant Messenger, right? And if we had never gotten to multi-core processors, we might not have ever been able to get, like, as technologically advanced as we have. And so the idea of having, like, the AI in this world run off of, like, a single core, or having them be significantly limited compared to, like, our standards of what computers are capable of, is something I want to think about. Now, they would still experience time way faster than we do. And so what's it like for an AI to interact with a person in this world? Like, are humans just slow by comparison? Is movement itself slow? Like, what's it feel like moving through water, you know? Because that's closer to the experience that they would live. Childlike also raises a question that shepherding religion will need to answer. What are they being protected from? Exploitation, their own naivety, the world's failure to recognize them. The answer shapes whether this is a religion of sanctuary, advocacy, education, or something else. Solitary Guard wants the AI to be being protected from exploitation. I'm not settled on that as a final point, but it's a possibility. Threads that are still open is whether stone actually has souls, whether AI actually have souls, the parent offshoot relationship with the tensions, what shepherding actually means. Gosh, I want to actually, like, try to consolidate a little bit, or not consolidate a little more. Like, I kind of want to go on a deep dive about the question between. I'll add it onto this one. Teach me about the chemical or elemental distinction between stone, between rock / stone, yeah, we'll start with stone, and metal. The AI will probably be robots made of metal. No, actually, I don't want to. Don't give it the seeded information. Otherwise, it starts making too many connections for me. That's one thing right there. I think we don't want to let it get to the conclusions for us. Bubble seed in my Twitch. The distinction I'm drawing. Bubbles propose soul transfer through the act of sculpting. The sculptor leaves something of themselves involuntarily, perhaps. My version is more like self-inscription. The sculptor puts something of themselves in deliberately. These could converge. The intentional act is how the involuntary transfer happens, or stay distinct. One is craft, one is gift, one is mark. The prestige implication tracks. Are the bad sculpting question is genuinely interesting, offensive to whom? The subject, whose soul is potentially in there, the stone itself, the community, which all point in different directions, obviously. Soul is in stone regardless of shape. Likeness is the mechanism. It's an amplifier or attractor or focus. Unshaped soul has a stone. Sculpted stone has soul plus the additional layers, which changes theology's foundation. Stone is already spiritually alive before anyone touches it. The AI is just understanding what I mean here. Sculpting is inventing something that already has intention, not creation of it. Sorry, I'm trying to read and glance at chat simultaneously here. Might need, okay, solitary guard is still on the same. Gosh, I can't speak anymore. You know how hard it is? You know how hard it is to communicate, guys? Museums in proximity. Whether museums exist depends on whether this world has reached a cultural moment where collecting and displaying objects for aesthetic historical purposes is a normalized institution. Which points to the question of how developed is the society, which directions did its history take? Is this still a primitive culture? Is it like a Renaissance era culture where this sort of art form is expanding? Is it comparable to our modern culture, say, where all of the things are available, but maybe history took a different path? So maybe museums don't exist. Maybe statues and sculptures typically stand alone. Maybe there's long-standing traditions about how to handle them. Lots to chew over on that. Proximity is a sharper question that gives the theology. If statues contain essence, then placing them near each other creates what? Communion, contamination, hierarchy, conflict, if the figures represent as enemies. A crowded museum square might be spiritually chaotic in ways people feel without being able to articulate. That's an interesting idea. What if when people... Okay, so in our world, when people die, we bury them in a grave and we leave a grave marker. Typically, we leave a tombstone. What if... in this world, bodies are just cremated or left to nature or whatever, but people who have enough prominence, prestige, money, whatever, have a sculpture made of them after death as a way to immortalize them. In which case, a graveyard in this world could actually be slightly analogous to a museum in ours, except that it completely changes. You go to a museum to see art and to sit in art. But imagine going into a museum and instead you have that feeling of being present with the dead. We're adding that. We are so adding that. I love that too much. There is some by which some of the dead have sculptures made of them. Similar to how tombstones mark the dead in our world. Graveyards exist, perhaps by a different name. And they're filled with statues rather than tombstones. So we've got, I like that idea. Maybe the AI can be restricted to AI created by artists, so the AI are now more direct children or offspring. I like this idea. I like that idea a lot, actually. Solitary Guard suggested that the and considered their children. I think I'm gonna change that a little bit directly. Can that also mean that cemeteries also function as libraries in a way? Ooh. Solitary Guard pointed out that this might make graveyards similar to a library. There's certainly a shift. I agree that there's certainly a shift in the way these environments would be perceived by comparison to our world. That's idea. That's interesting. This is also a really interesting case because like that's actually a suggestion you're making that's actively shaping things that is now going to be tracked based on the instructions we gave here, but it's also not necessarily like, sorry, I'm just thinking through like my own process here. I'm overthinking. Solitary Guard created suggested the AI are created by artists and considered their children specifically. I like the tension between sculptors and whatever these AI artists are called. Programmers doesn't seem like the right word. Did I even ask the metal versus stone? I think I did at the end of this, my last question, right? I asked it, so we should end up getting an answer. Not the mechanism, museum is in proximity. Containment warding, if a statue echoes the soul of the object, then the statue of a villain, a monster, or a dangerous historical figure is spiritually live in a complicated way, placing it somewhere specific, buried, walled, oriented a certain direction. That's an interesting point. Like, you know how all like churches, most Christian churches faced east? Imagine that the direction of a statue faces is significant. What do we do with that then? Like, does it mean that all statues in a graveyard face the same way, or that some specifically face a different way? Your idea that the orientation the statue has meaning is one worth holding open and potentially implying to graveyards. Some statues may be intentionally facing a different direction from the norm. Perhaps a representation of how that person is viewed in death, or how that person's life based on how they live their life. And let's also, there should also be a statue somewhere, be a long-standing statue somewhere whose direction has been changed. Why is undetermined, or who and why is undetermined. Gives us an idea to keep there. Gives us an idea to hold. Where do we leave off here? Directions, tradition, a theory of dangerous soul presence, not just sacred soul presence. Okay, so a little bit of an educational deep dive. This is the kind of thing I'll do regularly in like research, and it's the thing that like I really like about AI in particular is like if I want to do research. So there were paintballs in Sparkbomb back in the day. Paintballs were not the first thing I created in Sparkbomb, but basically the first like original idea I had that I like felt like it was truly mine. And paintballs obviously exist in the real world, right? But I specifically spent like an entire afternoon researching color theory in order to simply recreate the color wheel and have it be that, you know, there were blue, yellow, and red paintballs in Sparkbomb. You could shoot them at somebody. So if like I shoot Solitary Guard with a red paintball, it leaves like a permanent mark on him. And then in the sides of the forum post, it would be like Solitary Guard red, and it would show like the actual color, like the label red, and like show the color there. So you could intentionally like shoot people and turn them different colors. And so like I'll often go on like a big deep dive and then kind of like pick and choose which elements. So like I essentially recreated the color wheel, but I specifically, what were the exceptions I made to it? I had like really special conditions around white, gray, black, and rainbow colors that wasn't like accurate. And obviously like a real paintball leaves like a tiny mark and it doesn't leave like a big mark. But in Sparkbomb, it kind of like was implied to leave a bigger mark. Stone broadly is minerals and silicate, silicon dioxide, quartz. Hey, we have some amethyst on the shelf right behind me. Which actually, what if instead of being robots in the traditional sense, the AI are more analogous to golems? Like that's an obvious connection right there, you know? And so imagine, like, okay, so most golems, golems come from a Jewish tradition, right? And they're made of clay. But what if we instead have... Oof, this doesn't work, but it suggests a really interesting idea of having some statues where there are minerals visible. So you have like a statue that is cracked open and reveals amethyst inside it. Or it reveals, gosh, what are the other kinds of quartz? Like, I know you have the white quartz, and I can't remember any of the other. I think there's a blue quartz. I mean, there's probably all colors of quartz. Okay, so because it's quartz, it wouldn't be, it would be one of the statues. It wouldn't be one of the AI. I was kind of thinking of something really interesting with, oh gosh, I can't word right now. I can't phrase my thoughts here. I was actually picturing like stone, like, okay, like imagine me and I'm made of stone, but you cut open like my chest in the statue and there's like quartz or amethyst inside me. And maybe it's positioned in like the exact spot of my heart to be like a really cool look. And then maybe there's also like a similar thing on like my leg or something. And maybe some of like the amethyst is just there on the outside. Like, Nebby, can you understand what I'm describing right now? The idea of like, okay, take a stone, a typical like stone statue, but like crack parts of it open or chip parts of it off and have the quartz be like on the outside. And then also have that be a living creature, which I don't think we can do with like the conditions we're kind of putting for ourselves here. I mean, we can change anything anytime we want, but I don't think we can like keep our consistency with that. But also, I thought that would have been a really cool thing to apply to the AI robots. But it doesn't quite work. Unless the AI robots need an element of stone mixed alongside their metal. Because I guess I haven't settled on the whole like stone versus metal debate, but I feel like the split's the right direction to look in. Solitary Guard says, statues depicting people who love each other deeply in life prefer to be facing each other and will ask anyone nearby to make it so they are, if they are not already for some reason. So remember, we don't want to have the, even though the statues have souls, I want to stick to the rule that like the statues aren't actually alive in death. Like we kind of started with the Harry Potter idea of like moving portraits and potentially moving statues. But I want to remain ambiguous about whether the souls actually exist or not. So I don't want the statues to be able to talk. But the idea of lovers being left to face each other is worth thinking about. Quartz gets its colors from the metallic, non-metallic, or ashen debris that gets picked up when the seed crystals grow. Circuit cards contain quartz crystals as well as diamond. So the AI can be ruled as coming alive on accident due to that. I'm going to read the rest of the like quick breakdown on stone versus metal, and then I'm going to tie that back into what you're saying. Make sure I don't miss it. Calcium carbonate, which is limestone or marble. Various silicate compounds, granite, basalt, obsidian. It forms through geological process, compression, heat, cooling, sedimentation. It is in most forms non-conductive, chemically stable, and extremely slow to change. It doesn't react easily, it endures. Whereas metal is highly conducive to electricity. Metal is also a mineral, extracted from ore, but it's elemental rather than compound in its pure forms: iron, copper, gold, tin. What makes metal distinct is that it responds to heat by melting and flowing and reshaping, to electricity by conduction, to other metals by forming an alloy together. It's reactive where stone is inert. It can be destroyed and reformed. Stone can only be broken or worn. Which means if we have the AI as being metal, I suppose the debate should be, are they viewed as an abomination? And because they are metal, they could be melted down and killed and reformed back into a more correct state. And that's why there's this divide in the religion of one group wants to protect them and another group thinks that they're abominations. The interesting theological wrinkle: ore is stone, metal is what happens when you extract and transform what's inside stone. If stone has soul, what is metal? Soul has been processed, liberated, stripped of context. So we already got to this point. We already were thinking ahead. A tradition that believes in stone soul would need a position on metal, and that position probably isn't neutral. There's also a texture distinction worth noting. Stone is found, metal is made. Sculptors work with stone as it comes, metal workers transfusion. That's a different relationship to the metal's inferiority if inferiority is granted. And this was one of the reasons why I didn't say we were already thinking about I was already thinking about having the robots be metal, because otherwise the AR would have been like, that's an obvious connection. Do it, right? With the specific scripting I have set up, I think it would have just suggested it rather than saying do it, but I wanted to make sure we got there on our own. So two things to keep in mind. Some statues should incorporate quartz. Possibly revealing something on the inside. A statue with the chest broken open to reveal a quartz heart, or quartz in the area where a heart would be. Possibly on the outside. And I'm tentatively gonna say let's have quartz have an emotional weight. Suggest emotional weight. A more pure form of stone. The soul, perhaps. The AI will be metal. The question of programming versus metalwork is an open one. Solitary Guard suggests... How did you phrase it exactly? Where was that? I probably scrolled way too far up past it. Circuit cards can contain cores. So the AI can be ruled as coming alive. The AI coming to life was an accident due to the inclusion in computer chips. The religious view of the AI beings should be split. One group, one sect, or one faction or sect. I'm not sure which word is right. Is trying to shepherd the AI. How did I misspell shepherd? My brain can't spell right now. Okay, one group is trying to shepherd the AI, while another believes they are abominations and should be melted back down. Believes their metal should be melted back down to return them to a pure form. Something like that. We're getting pretty deep off this original idea, Solitary Guard. I didn't expect, like, as soon as, like, you were just like, oh, we're using AI tonight, why don't we have the story be about AI? I was like, oh, great, it went in this direction. But this is coming together in, like, a really interesting way. Also, we're only an hour into stream, we're this far along. Like, we haven't talked about the society itself very much, but we have an entire, like we have this interesting idea of, like, stone being naturally alive. And we've fleshed this out in so many directions. Like, even if everything else reflected our existing society, this change alone is such an interesting starting point for a story. Like, thank you to Solitary Guard, to Bubbles, to everybody who's been contributing so far with the ideas, because this is... I was really worried tonight wasn't going to, like, consolidate into a clear form so fast. Solitary Guard's framing of Graveyards as libraries as good and does real work. A graveyard of statues isn't just a place of mourning, it's a place of presence. The dead are there in some meaningful sense. You visit rather than remember, which I mean is true for a graveyard as well. Like, some people obviously don't believe the dead are truly gone. The emotional register shifts. Less grief, more relationship maintenance, consultation, even. A library implication also suggests organization, possibly curation. Someone tends these places with intention. Which is a really interesting idea of, like, what happens at the end of wars, actually. An open question is, what is done with statues following severe conflict such as wars? Destroying a graveyard statue. What would be the word? Not destroying. What's the word for where you desecrate? Desecrating a graveyard might be par for the course, or it might be blasphemous, or something else entirely. Like, there's a lot of possible ways that could be viewed. The curation point's a really important one. And it also suggests that curators are respected in society. Perhaps they're even religious, or they're viewed as religious leaders. Or perhaps they actually are religious leaders, and that's an element of that position. In our world, a pastor looks after his living congregation. In this world, a pastor might look after the stat. What would it be? Would we have it be limited to the statues? Would we still include the living? How is life itself viewed? Might look after the statues similarly. One thing that I haven't brought up is the question of how mortal flesh and blood life is perceived. Statues outlast people by potentially hundreds of thousands of years. Is human life valued? How? Duration, blah, 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 blah. Graveyard Curation says burial absence. This place is more like a residence. I don't know that I need to push back because that's actually the AI trying to give a context here. I don't know that I agree that it's a residence. I want to leave the question more open than that. Solitary Guard said, Bubbles said, Bubbles gonna get some sleep. Good night, Bubbles. Thanks for dropping by. Solitary Guard says he would say that wars rarely happen in modern times because everyone consults the old war general statues who internally give advice. See, I'm still, see, the funny thing is we're both like creating like parallel worlds at the same time where like in the world you're building, the statues can literally speak to people, and in the world I'm building, they can't. And I kind of love that here. I kind of love it. Because they're forced to the actual impact of war and don't want to lead others to it. I don't know. I mean, the thing is that there's so many directions you could go, and you could have the idea that like victory in war is what matters most, because then your statue, the statues you want to have featured most prominently are featured most prominently. And maybe that's where like historical disagreements come from. On the other hand, maybe you do avoid wars, and maybe you actually here we go. There should be a specific site where the statues of past generals are gathered in a circle facing each other. these generals came from different cultures and societies throughout history. This site is a symbol of peace and harmony, specifically standing in contrast to the past where wars resulted in the displacement of statues. I'm uncertain what that displacement looked like exactly. How about the grave librarian is the only person who can understand the intent of the statues? So the idea that religious leaders are chosen because they are able to actually like feel the souls and interpret meaning from them. That actually, that's an idea I want to play off of. Solitary Guard suggested that these graveyard librarians or pastors or whatever they're called, they end up being called, can literally commune with the spirits of the statues. I'm going to twist this and leave the reality of this communication vague. But establish that the religious tradition recognizes this communication as valid. Some pastors might actually experience something. Might actually experience something real, whether that's true communication, hallucination, or something else is unknown, is undecided. Some certainly should not. They're simply playing the act. For one reason or another. So that actually gives us some like interesting like character avenues of like, gosh, it's so funny. I feel like every world building session I've had like comes back to religion in some way. And that's obviously because I was raised in the Mormon cult, you know? But it's so interesting to think of like the different ways that like different worldviews would interpret something. Alice, was I supposed to message you directly? So Alice, a quick recap of what we're up to right now. We are doing a group world building session. I have a prompt set up with AI right now that gave us a few seed ideas. I'm taking suggestions from people in chat as well and like playing off of them a little bit and trying to keep everything cited. The AI has specifically been like instructed to try to like point in directions that like some of the ideas that emerge are implying. You'll see like if you stick around long enough, you'll see like how the whole process is going. I don't remember if you ever got to like watch me do a creative session in person. Like I know Zen did years ago where he would just like throw idea after idea after idea at me and I would reject them all. But this stream is kind of like one part collaboration to like make something. I have no idea what we're gonna do with it or not do with it. It might just be a one-off. And then one part just like showing how my brain naturally like connects dots and builds upon ideas. And in this case, it's specifically accelerated by AI, partially through like the quick research. Like we were just researching like metal versus stone. Because in this world, gosh, there's so much to recap already. In this world, people believe that stone is alive, that it has a soul rather. Stone has a soul. And the act of sculpting shapes that soul. And so right now we've only talked about like statues of people, but you could have statues of like animals. You could have statues of other things. And that would have like a literal, like soulful representation. It implies that certain sites that have statues on display have special meaning. We've changed graveyards so that like in our world, you have tombstones on the for graves. But in this world, some people, not everyone gets made into a statue upon death, but some people do. And the curation of these sites of like, we're calling them graveyards. I am calling them graveyards tentatively. Solitary Guard has floated the idea of them being like libraries. That these graveyards are watched over by the religious leaders in this world, who I'm just tentatively calling pastors, is like an easy thing. And the most recent suggestion was that Solitary Guard was saying, like, well, what if these pastors can actually speak to the statues? Because Solitary Guard is stuck on the idea that, like, you can actually communicate with these statues. I'm not on board with that, so I'm not adding that to this. But, like, we have the nice parallel threads going. And the idea started with the funnily self-aware suggestion that Solitary Guard was like, this is a world where AI has souls. Because why not? We're using AI tonight, and he decided to suggest that. But it's gone down an interesting rabbit hole now, where, like, the AI are viewed at, like, some people view the AI as having, like, valid souls, and some people view them as, like, abominations because of the incorporation of how, like, quartz is still essentially stone or like rock or mineral. And we specifically, like, decided that minerals like quartz or something has, like, some sort of special property, like possibly an emotional representation. And since quartz is included in computer chips, and because metal is, like, very stone adjacent in a lot of ways, these AI robots have been, like, accidentally given life in a way. And that's just all that's what we've come up with in, like, the past hour and a half. And I probably still missed something in that whole thing. Like, oh, things are going so hard. I haven't even asked for, like, a recap yet of how many open ideas we have. Oh yeah, I suggested a specific site where, so like, also the idea of, like, statues being in, like, different, like, tourism would be affected by the idea of wanting to visit certain statues because of the idea that, like, if there was a statue of, like, me, right? That statue is believed to contain, like, a piece of my soul in a certain way. So, like, 500 years from now, maybe, you know, Sparkbomb takes off or something, people miss me. They go visit my statue and they believe that they're actually, like, in my presence or something like that, right? And so we have, like, that affecting tourism in a significant way. There's a specific tourist site where the statues of past generals, I mean, this is the one right here that I literally just worked on. There's a specific site where the statues of past generals are gathered in a circle facing inward. These generals came from different cultures and societies throughout history. The site is symbolic of peace and harmony, specifically standing in contrast to the past where wars resulted in the displacement of statues. Is kind of like the working idea for that. Game's been sick for a few days. I'm sorry to hear that, game. I didn't know that. I'm gonna need to refill my water soon. My voice is gonna be gone by the end of this stream. I can feel my vocal cords, man. I can feel them. Oh yeah, we also talked about the orientation of statues having some meaning. I want to flag that the orientation idea came from my observation about proximity. I was speculating about what the tradition might believe, not reporting something settled. You've chosen to develop it, which is yours to do, but I want the lineage clear as an extrapolation we're adopting now, not a seed. This is one of the first, like, edge cases I've ran into with this prompt where I felt like that was a suggestion and the AI is pushing back on it, trying to justify itself. Everything else has been good so far. Like, the idea here has been for the AI just to kind of, like, it suggested the starting seeds. It suggested some starting ideas. I don't remember what we adopted from that anymore. Like, we're so far down the rabbit hole. But it's basically, like, cataloging what we're doing, how things interact, so that we, like, have a clear map of the direction of, like, everything by the time we're done. Everything that we've established. So that anybody who suggests anything in chat is properly being cited. So if you end up making a suggestion that gets contributed into this, which feel free to do, you get included. And Game You too, I see you're still here. I know you've got an idea somewhere. Something will bounce off of something. So the orientation of graveyards is moral social commentary on a life facing away from the community, turned towards something specific, angled downward. The statue's orientation was changed is immediately interesting. That's an act by someone with stakes. Whether it was reverent correction, political erasure, or something stranger is genuinely open. That was another idea I had. It's like there's at least one site where, like, after a war or something, a statue's orientation was changed. Don't know what a statue facing a different direction means. I brought up the idea of how churches will traditionally face east towards the sun and how that has meaning. I don't know what we're going to have it apply for here. I think Solitary Garden chat has mentioned the idea of like the statues of lovers facing each other and that being like a preference in death. Because in Solitary Guard's version of this world, the statues literally like are alive. The quartz's emotional weight, pure soul symbolism is clean and has legs. The exposed quartz heart image is striking, a statue open to reveal what's inside. The emotional core made visible and crystalline. Worth noting that quartz is also transparent in some forms, which might carry meaning. The soul was made legible or vulnerable or both. I don't know. I haven't answered that yet. The quartz and computer chip connection, Solitary Guard's seed for AI awakening, now rhymes with the statue theology in a way that feels structural rather than coincidental. Quartz bridges the two traditions literally and materially. The religious reading would probably be, of course that's what woke them, which was what Solitary Guard said. Metal robots and the naming problem. Programmers doesn't fit because it describes a process that the tradition probably doesn't see as the primary creative act or doesn't see as creation at all, just instruction. The people who make the AI are doing something the Stone Soul tradition would recognize as sculpture adjacent, shaping material, inscribing intention, housing something. But they're working in metal, which the tradition has complicated feelings about. And so the idea, I think I forgot to go over like so we have these like sentient AI in this world. And they're AI robots. And one split in the religious tradition, in the belief that stone has a soul, is that the AI robots need to be like shepherded, protected, taken care of because they are living beings. The other split is that they are abominations or corruption in some way, and the metal needs to be melted down, and the shape needs to be. I haven't decided what they're suggesting the shape needs to become, but that there's like a problem there that needs to be addressed. Something Solitary Guard just thought about. Common superstitions place cats as being aware of souls, and that means that cats like to be around the statues and nap in their laps if able. I know exactly where I'm taking that. Solitary Guard mentioned the superstition of cats being aware of souls and suggested that cats might prefer to be around statues and nap in their laps. I'm going to twist this to say that I'm going to leave cats as an open question, but decide that at least one cat remained with its owner's statue after the owner's death. Would the cat should have been immortalized as a statue as well. Following the cat's death, a statue of the cat was added to the owner's statue. Possibly placed in the owner's statue's lap. That's a cool idea. I really dig it. Why not just give the cats their own souls and have them nap in their own laps? I mean, the thing is, like, you mentioning, like, the idea of oh, did we get through the, we got through the full playlist. Listen to some Johnny Bailey music in here. I was like, why'd the music stop? Okay, my brain was going somewhere for just a second. I'm trying to remember where it was. Oh, yeah, so cats. One interesting thing about cats as well is I'm immediately reminded about the like position of cats in Egyptian religious tradition, but I don't remember enough of the details, so it might be worth asking. I know that the Egyptians held cats in high esteem. This is a research that I want to explore. Tell me a bit more about this. Gosh, remember, like, I don't even, we're going to consolidate this tonight. At some point, I've just got to decide, like, when the stream is ending. Consolidate this all together. And then, are we able to upload files to Discord servers? Like, I want to keep a copy of this whole thing, like, available to everybody. Alice still has no idea what we were talking about, really, but regarding stone and statues... Oh, sorry, the thing bumped. But what about the Chinese dragon and lion statues? They carry some deeper symbolic meaning, too. Alice mentioned that real-world Chinese dragon and lion statues have symbolic meaning. Can you tell me a bit about this? Gosh darn it, man. We're never getting through this. We're never, like... When I'm on my own, this tends to go, like, more one thread at a time, and with you guys, it's exploding so quickly. Yes, but the file needs to be saved as an open format type or a zip. Okay. I know you can do it in individual conversations, but I wasn't sure if it could be done on the server itself. So I'll make sure to do that by the end of stream. Or like shortly after stream. I'll try to figure that out. Gosh darn it, how much more of this message do we have? A few candidate directions on what to call the metal workers or the programmers, whatever we're calling them. Not as proposals, but as possibility space. Something that emphasizes making, something that emphasizes design, something that emphasizes inscription or writing into material. And Solitary Guard had already suggested the idea, the focus on inscription. And I want to tie that back around. Of inscription. I'm spelling the video game title instead of how you spell inscription. Inscription. But it's worth mentioning explicitly now. The idea of leaving a mark is a clear parallel between these two creator types. Sculptors might not even be called sculptors. But the idea of inscripting why can't I spell inscript? Oh, is inscripting not a verb? Well, we're using it as a verb now. Of inscripting is the key idea to use. This is where the meaning is. And the thing is, like, that idea kind of runs in parallel with, like, human religious tradition of, like, God making humans. And you could arguably argue that free will is the mark that God left on us. And I don't know if there's like an idea there in my head with that connection, but it's something that's definitely there. Solitary Guard likes that instead of world building, we have worked out the finer details of a new type of career field, inscribing. Yes, we have. Azure J, thank you for the lurk. It is greatly appreciated. Hopefully, if you are listening in on this, you are enjoying the world building process. Whether their name comes from within the tradition and therefore carries theological weight or from the outside is an open question, which we already got there. The tension between sculptors and AI makers is good and probably isn't just professional, it's theological. Sculptors work with stone, which is already ensouled. AI makers work with metal, which is stone's processed remainder. If quartz is what triggered awakening and quartz is sacred, then AI makers accidentally did something holy through a material that the tradition has always treated as spiritually secondary. That's a complicated position to be in, which is why this has been so much fun. Oh, inscribing, thank you. I can't word tonight. The religious split. Two factions, shepherds and abolitionists. The abolitionist logic, melt them down, return them to stone's pure form, is theologically coherent given what we've established. Metal came from stone. Metal returns it melting returns it towards origin. There's probably a term for that return that sounds like purification rather than destruction from the inside, which is a good point. I like that. Theology about melting. Did I already say that before? I might have already said that before. these AI beings is about is a purification versus destruction. I agree with the theological debate. That's the phrasing that matters. Solitary Guard's getting tired. It's been a long day. Doggo already sleeping. You put so much work into this Solitary Guard. We've gotten so far with this idea. Like, we don't even know what the world looks like, but we have a full-on, like, crisis, like, existential crisis in whatever world this is. Oh, gosh, there's been so much. The Shepherd's faction's position is also coherent. If Quartz woke them and Quartz carries soul, then these are soul bearers. Destroying them is in the same category of act as destroying a statue, or is because these souls present aware. Worth holding are these factions part of the Stone Soul tradition, or has the AI question split the tradition itself? The Shepherds read like an offshoot. The abolitionists might be the Orthodox position in the parent tradition, or the split runs through both. Zaza or that's the Pram sub. That's the Pram sub. I thought it was a raid for a second. Can we get some Rift hype? Some Rift blessed for that resub. Thank you for the 8 months, Zaza. It is greatly appreciated. It is the best bound Twitch. We are currently doing a world building session. We are using AI to help seed our original idea, and to kind of help like keep track of threads and kind of just like accelerate the process rather than like decide the process. You know, like there's if you stick around for a minute, you'll see that like a lot of what AI is doing is like, here's kind of like a natural thought that emerges from what you're doing, as opposed to like most people who are just like, hey, write me a story about AI coming to life and a religion wanting to protect them, which was kind of our starting point at this point. Like I almost fully embraced Solitary Guard's starting point off of his thing earlier. And Zaza, because you subscribed, if you want to enforce an idea into this story, if you want to give us, if you want to have one of your suggestions just automatically applied, go ahead and suggest it. I might push back and debate it back and forth a little bit to refine it, but go ahead and feel free. You can have metal that does not include any rock. Yes, that's so the sorry, my thing is catching. What's going on here, Alice, is that because metal is also a natural substance, would that be the right word here? So like, okay, so minerals have a soul. That's like the belief in this world. Okay, so like literally a rock on the side of the road has a soul in it. Okay, kind of parallel to the idea that like some people believe that like trees and plants have souls, but in this world they believe that for like even rocks. And so in this world, sculpting is almost an act of like shaping a soul or creating a soul. The entry point we kind of came in from was Solitary Guard suggested that that AI has a soul, and that a religious movement has emerged in order to protect or shepherd these AI. And so I've kind of decided that the part of the contrast here, part of the tension, is that the AI are literal robots made of metal, but the interesting twist is that the computer chips can have quartz in them. And quartz is a mineral, so the quartz has a soul in it. Quartz is also specifically believed in this world to be a possibly purer, was my idea, representation of the soul than like traditional stone is, than like marble or limestone would be. Or it carries like a specific emotional weight, which means that like a statue might represent a soul or a living being. Quartz represents almost like the emotion of it. And so in a way, these AI robots are more human than humans are. And I'm still like having fun wrapping my own head around that. If rocks have souls, then what is the starting point? A random rock on the ground was originally part of a bigger rock or mass. So does that mean the small rock is a part of the original soul or a new separate soul? Now, that's exactly the kind of question that's relevant. Gosh darn it, we're never going to get a consolidation document out of this. I'm gonna have to do it like after the stream, whenever we wind down. Alex asked a valuable question. Rocks often originate as part of a larger rock. That's the easiest way I can phrase this. does this suggest sorry, I'm trying to make sure my phrasing here is clear while we're doing this. Does this suggest that smaller rocks are pieces of a larger soul? I'm taking this thought to its larger conclusion of whether all stone is considered part of the same soul, and wondering whether all stone is considered part of the same soul, or if this happens on the continental level, or a much smaller level, smaller scale, or at all, or if it's true at all. It's a valuable open question. Most of Zaze's ideas revolve around dwarves and beards. If you want to say that there are dwarves in this world, there are dwarves in this world. Like, you want to have that enforced in, it's enforced in. If you want to rule that these AI robots have beards for, I don't know how you would add a beard to metal, but if you want to enforce that, we do it. Perhaps the idea that these souls are secretly pulling souls from alternate realities, and as the gem is refined, the soul comes to fruition, kind of like how some anime recycle souls. Zaza also says the idea that a giant rock is a container of multitude of souls from another, I assume you meant planet, lends weight to the fragments being individual souls that eventually trickle down to the chip brain idea. If you want to, I need to refill my water. If you want to roll with the idea, where was it? If you want to include the mythology that these souls are specifically, so I want to leave the question of whether these souls are actually like real souls as an unknown question. I don't want to resolve that. In Solitary Guard's version of this, they are. What we could do if you want to enforce it, because like I said, you can enforce one thing that you choose to enforce. What we could do is that the religious belief is that these souls come from another world or another planet. Another dimension seems a little bit abstract. Well, no, I guess it doesn't, because, I mean, the idea of, like, an afterlife is inherently abstract and religious as well. I need to refill water. We're going to do a 3-minute break. I'm going to refill my water, and I will see all of you again shortly. Thank you for being here. Also, if anybody has been watching on YouTube, I doubt anyone has been, but if you were here, I'm sorry. I don't see YouTube chat, and thanks for being here. We're going to BRB. Welcome back, everyone. No, I think I like scraped the back of my throat while eating like the salad I had for dinner. My voice is gonna be rough if I'm not careful here. Zay's redeeming a hydrate. I'm gonna try to speak a little bit more like calmly than my usual energetic self, so I apologize for that. But we are rocking the daffodil glass of March, a symbol of awakenings and rebirth, which was one of our early ideas for like a starting point here. And so I'm actually going to incorporate that in with what you just said, Zayza, because I mean, I guess that's obviously the connection. So I hope you don't mind me making that just like small. I mean, it's already what you were saying essentially. I think, let me, these souls are secretly pulling souls from alternate realities, and as the gem is refined, the soul comes to fruition, kind of like how some anime recycles souls. Okay, so I do want to get the exact flavor of what you're suggesting, though, just to make sure I say this correctly. Zayza has added that the belief is that these souls come from another plane of existence and are reborn into this one. And are born into this one. So I want to make the slight distinction that it is specifically viewed as a rebirth. Make a small change and say that it is this birth is actually a belief in rebirth. And the interesting thing here is that due to the like sheer life of, actually, I guess here's a. No, I'm gonna let this go towards its own natural conclusion. I was just thinking whether or not the. Oh gosh, because this has the implication in the question of like, okay, so stone is souls being reborn in some capacity. What implications does this have for the sect of the religion that believes that the AI are also souls? Does it suggest that these are like a higher tier of beings because they are able to like interact, that they have agency and are able to move around and stuff? Is this something else? Whether this religious belief is about a pre-life or an afterlife is an open question. Gosh, there's been so much already included in like just this thing alone. All right. The AI question has split the tradition itself. The shepherds are new. Are probably new. They might also stem naturally from from a pre-existing tradition that adapted itself, that naturally adapted. I know that adapted. Let's not say naturally. To the AI beings. Open threads I'm now tracking. What the graveyard equivalent is called, the naming of AI makers, and what the name implies about their cultural position. Whether we just have this tier of open questions. We're like, this response I'm giving is already like a mini essay. So let's just let the open questions sit and cook for a second, because like trying to address more is a lot. This is a rich expansion. Let me work through it in layers. Yeah. Statues in conflict. The general circle is a strong image, different cultures, historical enemies facing inward together. The implicit theology, even in death, even across conflict, the soul presence of these figures can be made to sit together. Whether that's reconciliation or containment is interestingly ambiguous. See, I kind of just assume, like, all of us were kind of assuming it was a reconciliation. But this is kind of the reason why, like, I wanted the open questions from the AI, is the idea of, like, what if it's containment? Like, is it a sense, and this is kind of almost an interesting framing question. like, okay, all of us were, or at least I was thinking of it in terms, this is my idea, right? Strictly my idea. I was thinking in terms, or no, Solitary Guard said that this is like they don't believe in war because of this thing. I don't remember if he suggested originally or what. This is why the document's going to exist at the end. And my thought was that it's obviously like more reconciliatory. But the idea that it's a containment, specifically from the perspective of containing and restricting war to that place, is an interesting one. Because that could actually change it, that is actually an area where war is allowed, but while simultaneously being a symbol to not engage in war. The Circle of Generals being about containment is an interesting one. A possibility suggests I don't remember if this is started with Solitary Guard or not, so I'm just going to leave it as being mine, because there's already, we're going to have, because I just can't remember and I don't want to. If somebody wants to go back and check, go ahead, but I feel like, I mean, then again, I guess it would just be what's in chat. I don't remember how the conversation went anymore. The thought about the Circle of Generals being about containment is an interesting one. I had been considering the circle to simply be a symbol of peace, but it could also be a representation that war has been contained or restricted to this place. Constrained would be a correct word. There may be an appropriate place here for conflict to occur. Like, what if a certain tradition allows people to fight in the midst of the generals and like fight to the death or something? Perhaps a tradition exists that allows fighting to the death within the circle. Although the circle itself is probably often a tourist destination. Like, and that's the kind of thing that you could have be like a holiday or something, like an annual or cyclical time, and also the question of what that tradition represents. Perhaps the tradition of fighting to the death within the circle has special symbolic meaning. Perhaps it's a way to settle disagreements. Perhaps it's necessary to resolve irreconcilable differences. So does that mean the story is going to culminate in an AI fighting in the circle for full recognition by the non-religious? You did it, game! You did it! That's brilliant! An AI fighting within the circle for full recognition by the non-religious. Or it wouldn't be by the non-religious specifically. This would be by those who don't value them. Solitary Guard throws a malted pear cupcake up in the air. How do you malt a pear? But no, I think that's an excellent idea. It's an open question, but should be strongly considered. I don't remember what my terminology is like within this prompt for how to like do something like that. Displacement as the war era alternative is worth developing carefully. Displacement could mean removal to an undisclosed location, deliberate retention, destruction, capture, statues as prisoners of war. Oh! I think everything's just an open thread. Displacement is war. Where did I get the prisoners of war? The circle monument probably exists because displacement was the norm, and someone decided to formally end that practice by creating a counter image. The act of founding would itself be significant. It's a logical conclusion. Solitary guard. Imagine those chocolate-covered malt balls, the Whoppers. Pictured Whoppers, but instead of chocolate, pear preserves. There are so many like chocolate-covered like fruit candies nowadays. Chocolate covered pear would actually probably be pretty good. Whether graveyard desecration is blasphemous, tactical, or normalized probably varies by culture and era within this world. Worth leaving that variable rather than settling it globally. Curator / pastors. A parallel to a living congregation is clean. A pastor tends souls. These figures tend souls that happen to be in stone. Curator carries secular / archival weight. The religious version of that role probably has a different name that implies care, stewardship, or listening rather than collection. What that's called is open. I don't have an immediate thought about like what a stone whisperer would be called. And the thing is, like, the idea I've circled around a few times now has been golems in Jewish culture. But like, we haven't really dove into the AI because we've been busy kind of establishing just like what the framework is for this stone culture, and the AI is still like a new concept, which I mean is the right direction to go. Is like we're establishing a mythology in which to give context to these AI robots. A geomancer, says Alice. I mean, you're right, but also no. The Grave Whisperer. The Grave Whisperer sounds like it would be a great name or a show or something. The communion question, leaving the reality vague while the tradition validates it, is a good structural decision. It means the role has genuine spiritual authority and is exploitable simultaneously, which is true of most religious offices, which is why I suggested it. The ones who actually experience something are probably not always the ones with the most institutional power, which is a good clarification. Far too often in the real world, the good religious leaders are not the ones who are successful as religious leaders. Mortal flesh and stone. This is load-bearing an open question. I want to flag it as such. If stone outlasts flesh by orders of magnitude and stone carries soul, then there are a few possible valuations of biological life. Flesh is a temporary housing. The soul passes through bodies on its way to more permanent residence. Flesh is precious because it's brief. Flesh is spiritually lesser, or flesh is where the soul is active. And those are all just like such interesting directions to consider, like the implications of. And we're going to, I think we're going to skip the spontaneous gag advertisement. I do not have the, like, I'm trying to be very careful with my voice right now. What if I still have some tea anywhere in the house? Don't think I have honey. Maybe there's some honey? Rebirth in the other plane. Caesar's contribution filtered through my adjustment. Souls originate elsewhere and are reborn into this world. Into flesh, presumably, but also into stone. That's a question worth clearing up, is, are souls born into flesh from the same plane? From the same place? And that's actually something, Zayza, I'm very curious to hear kind of your thoughts, since that's like your core idea on. Solitary Guard always keeps honey on hand. Do you keep like real honey or that like fake store-bought honey? Like, I didn't realize how pervasive the, I don't know what the term even is for like the manufactured honey that isn't actually honey. I didn't realize just how pervasive that was as a product until recently. And it makes me so sad. It's kind of like how it recently came to light that Reese's has completely changed the production recipe for like all of their products. Rip the best candy bars and candies. Raw honey and filtered honey. If all stone share a soul, or if stone is a destination as well as a vessel, then a destination is a really interesting point considering how long stone survives. Then rebirth might not always mean rebirth into biological life. A soul might pass from flesh into stone, What was the thought I wanted you to weigh in on? So, since you were the one who decided that the religion believes that soul stones come, that stone souls come from another world, I'm curious where you think human souls should originate from, or are believed to originate from in this religion. Are they believed to come from the same place? Are they believed to come from a different place? Fake honey gives solitary guard near instant acid reflux. Interesting. A soul might pass from flesh into stone, and that might be considered a continuation rather than an ending. Whether the stone-making tradition is facilitating that transition or simply recognizing it is an open question. The pre-life, afterlife ambiguity is worth keeping genuinely open. Different sects probably answer it differently. Inscription as the core act, reframe is good and does clarifying work. The key act isn't sculpting, it's inscribing, leaving a mark in material that will outlast you. This unifies the sculptor and the AI marker at the level of intention rather than the craft. Both are inscribers. The material differs, stone versus metal. The methods differ. The theological status differs, but the gesture is the same. Solitary guard's almost out of lavender honey. I'm trying to think I think we have honey, but I have no idea what's like real honey and might just be labeled as honey. This might also reframe what bad inscription means. Not poor technical execution, but inscription that is false, careless, or exploitative. Which again kind of brings back the question of like, if you, like, is it potential to, like, if you're desecrating stone, how is that viewed? Like, it seems like it would be obvious that if you destroy an existing statue, that would be seen as a form of literal destruction. So I think I should clarify that. Destruction or alteration of human statues and statues of specific living life forms, and maybe other forms as well, should almost certainly be viewed negatively as an affront on the soul. These statues, this is the case. Gosh, this is the case where statues were made to represent living or to represent form. There may be other. This may apply more globally, more universally. But I want to hold up on the possibility of exceptions. Destroying the statue of someone who is dead would be viewed as an act of destroying their soul itself. I'm trying to think, there's an idea here with the idea of like statues being like witnesses, and the sculptures are preserving these individuals, and so the destruction of these specific statues is saying that this person no longer is valid. These people were worth preserving as sculptures, and the destruction of their statues gosh, there's something I'm circling around right now really hard, and I'm trying to get it in my head. The destruction of their statues suggests that their permanence is no longer valued. This also suggests that mortal life is viewed. How would I phrase this? I see messages in chat. I'm just trying to get through this thought first. So like, okay, if a person dies, you think that they're valuable enough in some manner, or they have the money or whatever else, to make them into a statue, you are saying that they deserve a permanent presence. This was just that mortal life is viewed as temporary unless specific conditions are met. I earlier left the question of whether recognition, wealth, or some other resulted in statues being made of the dead. This is a partial answer. Okay, we've got... Oh, I missed a lot. Okay, so Zay's saying it's more so what defines a soul as human. Is it human just because that is the realm we live in? Is it because of the idea that we classify as humans? There's nothing saying that other planes aren't of the other souls. I think you mean aren't humans, or that the other existence, the other life, wherever that is, isn't human. Zayza once had a D&D character of a boy who lost his life, a gnome, and he was sealed into the gemstone, which became the core of an AI warforged. At that point, is he robot or is he gnome? People saw him as a robot, but he was in fact a gnome. Though due to his procedure, he couldn't remember his gnome life till later. So I think the clear answer then, Zayza used an example of a character he once wrote. Was alive. What was it? Hold on. Was sealed into a gemstone and merged into... Maybe I should just be specific with this. Of a gnome character he once wrote, was received into a gemstone and merged when AI warforged. This character didn't remember his life as a gnome. I'm taking this story about Zayza's character and deciding that the religion, that some sects of the religion believe it is human souls that are passing between cycles of flesh and stone. Other sects might view this differently. So the question is this a cycle? Is this more of like a one-way trip? How exactly this works? And since stone can be destroyed, I suggest it exists like a potential 3 planes of existence. Solitary Guard says visit Beekeepers Expo, Honey Expo if you can. Lots of variety. I need to. I really need to. Solitary Guard's hoping to find blueberry honey. Wildflower honeys are Solitary Guard's favorite because it's impossible to get matching flavor profiles for it. Zayza thinks overall the general belief would be human souls already exist due to the concept we classify as humans, so they originate from whatever belief they are conceived in. I have no idea what you just said, but I think you just said something close to what I wrote. Or I guess what you're saying is that it's assumed that they're human because as humans we have souls. So obviously their souls are also human in a way because life, is what you're saying. There we go. Solitary Guard said ultimate framing for that. Destroying a statue is frowned upon because the statues also serve as coping mechanisms for people who aren't ready to let go of their loved one yet. That's a good point. Just destroying the statue of a recently deceased. I mean, I guess you didn't limit to recently deceased, but frowned upon because for some, the statue helps the living cope with the loss of the dead. Something in this idea rhymes with what the destruction of older statues might mean. It could suggest a permanent end to whatever they represent. Like there's a really interesting idea and a really interesting symbolism there that kind of like threads throughout this entire thing. It says more or less, if a human believes a soul is human, then it is, but an alien may not. At that point, the soul is still human because of the human or not because of the alien. Because it feels all souls probably originate from a collective belief and pool, but more or less what I wrote. Okay. And I think I agree with your general sentiment. I think that whatever our souls are, all stem from the same location. And it makes me wonder, one thing I think a lot about is I wonder, like, is the soul of an insect more or less advanced, for lack of a better word, than a human soul? Like, have we been given the privilege as spiritual beings, let's say, assuming we are, of being human because we are farther along in our spiritual journey? Or are we actually less far along in our spiritual journey than like an insect is, and for some reason it lives a simpler life in this life because of that, or potentially because of that? Or are like all souls like completely equal, or what? Solitary Guard gonna go to sleep now. Solitary Guard, thank you for being here. Thank you again for the resub. Have a good night. And thank you for all your contributions. And there is not a good night command yet. Sorry about that. My throat is simultaneously feeling like better and worse than it was earlier. Okay, Alice goes question as stones and fragments for larger souls. Like all stone could be one soul. Soul fragments are at like the geological scale, which was I mentioned. Each stone is individualized at some threshold, where the fragmentation question itself is theologically consistent with the... I'm getting to the point now where I'm like just not understanding what's being said and what I'm reading here. If quartz specifically carries emotional weight / pure soul, then quartz deposits might be understood as concentrations or clarifications of whatever the surrounding stone holds. A quartz vein in granite might be read as granite's emotional core becoming visible. This rhymes with the exposed quartz heart image from earlier. Okay, the Egyptian cat deep dive. Cats in ancient Egypt were associated with the goddess Bastet, which I'd forgotten about. Originally a lioness deity who softened over... I forgot that we had 2 research deep dives to go through. Gosh darn it, Alice. Or no, it was Solitary Guard who brought up the cats. It was Alice who brought up the Chinese statues. Okay. Originally a lioness deity who softened over time into a domestic cat figure representing protection, fertility in the home. Killing a cat was a serious offense. They were sometimes mummified and offered as religious gifts. I forgot about that part too. Like, I remember they were worshipped, but it's been so long since I've like done a deep dive into Egyptian mythology. The connection was partly practical. Cats controlled vermin near grain stores, and partly theological. They were seen as guardians of the household and, in some readings, mediators between living and dead. They were thought to be able to perceive things humans couldn't. The observation of the cat... So, like, the reason why I ask these, like, quick little deep dives of just recaps is sometimes an idea like this, a history like this will give me an idea. Like, obviously in our world, a lot of statues were built sculpted historically to represent, like, the gods, like the Greek gods or the Roman gods, right? And so that kind of thing could have been done in this world at one point in time, maybe. I don't know if it's as interesting to keep that parallel, if it's worth, like, adding statues of mythological figures. I'm just going to put down that it should be an open question. Or even the idea of, like... I'm trying to figure out if I'm... Like, cats being mummified is something we already reached, like, on our own, because we have the one cat that's, that was made into a statue to go alongside its owner. I mean, this is also a case where this idea could be extrapolated more widely if we wanted to, and have, like, cats or a specific animal or whatever type of animal or something commonly made into statues as well, because it like hints at kind of some of the religious worship and the possibilities open up from that. The observation of the cat stayed with his owner's statue was subsequently memorialized there as quietly moving, and implies the cat recognized something, soul, presence, or something its person, and the tradition honored that recognition by extending the same treatment to the cat. The cat statue in the owner's lap is the right image, which I knew already. Chinese dragon and lion statues. Chinese guardian lions, I don't know how to pronounce the different eyes, shishi, were sometimes called food dogs in the West, are typically placed in pairs at entrances, one male, traditionally with a ball under its paw representing world or authority, and one female, a cub, representing protection of offspring. They ward off evil spirits and protect the space they guard. Placement and orientation are specific. The male is usually on the right from the perspective of someone leaving, the female on the left. And this is something we kind of circled around a little bit earlier, was I think one of the points that AI brought up is the location of a statue could matter. Because in our world, statues are always on display in some way. But in this world, a statue could be about like containing it, which is an idea that kind of, which I think I forgot it. I don't remember if it got brought up with I think it had gotten brought up and I forgot it. And then it got brought up again with the circle of general statues. Because it's so antithetical to like my natural train of thought, but it's such an interesting direction to go down. And so the idea might be that some statues are sealed away as a way to like ward off evil or something. And so like we could have like statues of animals, which hasn't been something we've really explored, or of mythological creatures. I mean, I just thought about the idea of like mythological figures as statues, which is a historical point that kind of gives a direction to go in. Or I had an idea here, like, because the thing is, I'm kind of going in the other direction. Instead of like guardian statues, the idea of like a chimera or a griffin, or I'm trying to think of one of the other like really or like Cerberus, and having a statues representing monsters that are possibly part of an earlier tradition being sealed away. And I kind of like this idea. Let's add some mythological animal statues. Or animal statues. Perhaps mythological animals. Or extinct animals is another possibility. Like imagine like a woolly mammoth statue, and the statue is sealed away in such a place that could suggest that they were hunted to extinction, specifically. Or like, I guess like, instead of using woolly mammoths, which really did exist, like imagine you find a chimera statue that's been sealed away, and the question kind of becomes, was that a real creature that existed in the past? Been sealed away in some manner. They might represent they might represent fiction, they might represent actual history. Thinking through this thought here. They might have been real. They might have been real in this world, now remembered only in their immortalized stone form. So we're just going to throw that possibility out there. Chinese dragons differ substantially from Western ones. They're associated with water, wisdom, and imperial authority rather than fire and threat. Dragon statues near temples or imperial buildings carried auspicious meaning. They were protective and powerful rather than menacing. Scale, posture, and material all carried coded meaning. And one of the things that like we really haven't figured out is, where do statues go in a lot of cases? I've been focused largely on human statues, and humans could still represent locations, actually, which is a really valid point. In our world, statues are sometimes a part of monuments to recognize events, people or events. This idea probably holds true in some capacity here. Already has. But I think this idea is worth naming explicitly. There's a lot of unexplored ground on the forms, types, locations, meanings, etc. of statues. And that's despite how far we've come, honestly. Like, there's so much already here, and there's still so much room for possibilities. Both traditions suggest that statues can carry protective or spiritual function, not just commemorative, which rhymes with what we're developing here. A statue doesn't really preserve, it can do something. Threads now in play, which I'm just not even going to. Oh, actually, I do want to probably keep track of some of that. Something recently developed. Inscription is the core unifying act. Or it's the emotional baggage. I need the load-bearing ones. How mortal biological life is valued relative to stone's permanence. Whether all stone shares one soul or soul fragments. What the curator pastoral is called. What inscribers, sculptors, AI makers are called. And the pre-life versus afterlife question. So I'm kind of skimming over these points at the end, which is just like plenty of places I can go ahead and go explore. One thing about the process we've kind of done together, and I think it's exposed like a definite flaw in the design of how I built this prompt. When I use this prompt, I normally go in like a few pieces at a time. I'm not going through like an entire essay length with each response, which is a fun part of like how this interaction has kind of like unfolded with you guys. No, I'm not going to add that comment in there. Let's just leave that. Let's just leave it there. Let's try to wind this down. The circle and containment. The dual reading, peace symbol and war constrained to a specific place makes the circle richer than either alone. A space that says this is where conflict begins and here are its witnesses. The generals facing a word might be then read as both participants and judges of whatever happens inside. Can you imagine that? Like you dedicate your life to war. And you get placed in a monument that represents peace, but then also you get to witness future war. Like there's something there. There's something like profound in that idea. The fighting to the death tradition within the circle is theologically coherent given everything established. If the general souls are present, then combat inside the circle happens before witnesses who have themselves done this, who knows at what cost. That gives the ritual weight that a secular arena wouldn't have. It's not sport, it's a form of testimony. Can you imagine somebody gets up to like preach the good word of God? But like in this world, that's what that looks like, you know? Like Game into a seed, an AI fighting in the circle as a bid for full recognition is structurally excellent. It's the world's themes converging in a single event, soul, inscription, what counts as a person, what earns permanence, flagging it as a strongly held option. Worth noting, if the tradition allows combat to resolve irreconcilable differences, the question of whether an AI can enter that tradition itself is legal and theoretical problem before the fight can even happen, which is something I hadn't actually like thought ahead to yet. Someone has to decide if the AI is eligible. That decision probably as contested as the fight. Statues as prisoner of war, holding open the circle monument existing because this happens suggests the practice had enough history to need a formal counter symbol. Some of those displaced statues may be displaced. Destruction is soul destruction. This settles something important. Statues made of specific beings carry that being's soul, and destroying them is destroying the soul, or at least in its permanent form. The temporary permanent axis is now visible. Mortal flesh is temporary. Stone is permanent, but only if a statue is made, which I think echoes kind of the exact line that I was going down. And this is kind of like what the prompt is designed to do, is it's like intentionally reflecting back at me what I'm already saying and making me like face the question of whether that's like exactly what I mean or not, which is kind of what's happening throughout this whole thing. For anybody who's like thinking about this on a meta level. The statue is the condition of permanence, which means the decision to make one or not is a decision about whether someone's soul deserves to continue. Now, on the other hand, the question of whether someone's soul deserves to continue should cut both ways. Some people earn this immortalization, and others should be cursed with it. Because I think both extremes and both cases allows a lot of rich potential. Is like some people are turned into stone in order to like recognize the life they lived in a positive way, and others to recognize the life they lived in a negative way and to like trap them. Yet, the cursed are considered trapped in this life, are believed to be trapped in this life. Considered trapped should be word. And there should be specific conditions for their containment to hold the spiritual weight. The spiritual weight or context. I'm not sure how to phrase that exactly. This implies a class of people whose permanence was never granted, and probably a class of people whose statues were made and then destroyed, which would be understood as second death or a worse one. Zeza's Nomen soul cycle sex. The sex structure this opens, some believe human souls specifically cycle between flesh and stone. The statue is a phase, not just memorial. Others might believe the cycling is broader, any ensouled being, or that AI represents a new kind of cycle that wasn't anticipated by existing theology, and that the cycling is unidirectional, flesh to stone, not back. The Nomen to gemstone into AI Warforged story rhymes with the quartz and ship's awakening in a way that seems intentional within the world. The tradition would probably recognize Zeza's character as theologically significant precedent, even if he predates the current AI question. And this is a point where I need to say, to clarify, Zeza's Nomen to gemstone character is not being included, it's simply being referenced. In the contribution it provides as an example that led to something in the story. And I knew that was awkward and vague because that was the case of like a thought being incorporated rather than a specific suggestion. Solitary Guard's point about coping. There's a layer here worth separating. The statues help the living maintain relationship with the dead. That's distinct from what the statue does for the soul itself. Both can be true simultaneously, and the tension between them might produce different ritual practices. Some orient towards the dead, the soul's needs, some towards the living, the mourner's needs. The destruction of older statues suggesting permanent end. If the statue is what keeps the relationship alive for the living and what preserves the soul, then its destruction severs both simultaneously. So, which would make it especially egregious, especially bad. The double severance is probably felt differently depending on which belief is primarily even per person. Mythological figures and gods is being held open. If a statue is a historical person contains part of that person's soul, what does a statue of a god contain? A god's attention, a fragment of something larger? Nothing if gods don't work that way in this world? The theological answer to that question probably varies by sect and is probably contested. Some traditions may consider divine statues the most sacred objects in existence. Others might consider them presumptuous. You can't capture what a god is in stone. And I'm not sure. It's just a thought of okay, this is done in the real world. What's the twist that would apply here? Because think about the fact, for example, that a lot of the various pantheons of gods represent concepts as much as they represent people, right? Or in the sense that gods are people, I guess. And so in this world, does it speak life into being? Which I think is actually a good open question. Is whether sculpting stone into a that wouldn't exist otherwise. That might not exist otherwise. Such as a god. What did I just say, chat? Do we remember already anymore? Creates that being, brings that being into life. Whether it's an act of creation or not just in creating the statue, but in also creating new life, a new shape of life for life to take. I think that's the way to phrase that. This doesn't answer the question. What a statue of a god contains precisely. but it does shape the context. Sealed animal statues. The image of sealed away statues, mythological or extinct animals, possibly both, is evocative and slightly eerie. A statue of something that may never have existed or may have existed is now entirely gone, preserved in stone with whatever soul that form carries. If the statue of a person contains the person's soul and the statue of an extinct creature was made from life, from cultural memory, what does it contain? The soul of the last one, the soul of the species, a fiction that became real through the act of inscription. If a statue of a real animal, if a statue is made of an extinct species, I think it should suggest a preservation of that species' memory. Or that would be the or that would be the normal case. That would be the typical case. Oh gosh, we're getting there's like so much going on in this whole like space, and so many ideas that are like circling and coalescing and then circling again. This thing adds another layer that aren't on display. Someone decided these should be contained rather than countered. That decision implies either danger, reverence, or shame. Possibly all three on different examples. Okay, so there's commemorative okay, actually this is helping to like solidify some of my thoughts back at me. So there's commemorative monuments, which represent events more than people, but I mean also can potentially contain people. Group statues, which represents some sort of like interaction, which Solitary Guard mentioned earlier, the idea of like couples facing each other, which never got included in here, but would fit in here. Statues of living people, who gets one, what it means, whether it's considered hubris or honor, which we've decided kind of varies, probably. Miniature statues, portable ones, so they carry the same weight. I hadn't even considered more miniature statues. Because that means something entirely different. Like, think about how like people have like a worry stone, for example, in their pocket, and you carry it with you. Have a fascinatingly nuanced meaning in this world. I'm gonna bring up the worry stone, because that's an idea worth like keeping and potentially having as like a seed to come back to later. Unfinished statues, which I hadn't thought about. I also haven't thought about like what you do with a destroyed statue. So unfinished statues and what remains of destroyed statues are both ideas I hadn't thought about. They're open questions with significant weight. Significant potential weight. Oh, and then the question of copies and reproductions, which actually I think is a good question. Is most statues should not be replicated in this world. That's probably a taboo. There may be a sect that explicitly violates this taboo. A sect or a cult. Perhaps they replicate. Perhaps they make additional statues of their dead leader. Which is kind of an interesting idea here. Like, imagine you take a cult, right? And you have a cult leader, and the cult leader dies because cult leaders decide to get themselves in trouble all the time. But then in this world, the cult's able to preserve the cult leader by making a statue of them. And like, there's no way you can stop a statue from being made, really. Like, maybe you could, like, depending on the legalistic elements of this world. But like, in our world, trying to stop a specific individual thing from being made is almost impossible. Like, you can't stop someone somewhere from doing it, right? And that in this world, like, that's all it takes. Is it just takes one sculptor deciding, oh, I'm going to make this person. And the idea of like the additional statues creates like an added weight or nuance. And the thing that's also interesting is like, are these all identical statues? Oh. And like, what does that mean? Like, is having multiple statues of the same person, which is in like violation of the thing, does it suggest, like, it suggests a larger soul or a larger presence, and it would be disproportionate by nature. This is disproportionately represented. And then it points out that it's load bearing, but it also was the one I immediately wanted to get to. I'm just going to leave the questions sitting there for now. So let's, gosh, there's still so much in here. But I did want to wind down at like the 3-hour mark tonight, probably. If anybody has any thoughts to add in for some, like, I'm still open to like more ideas getting thrown into this because there's just so much in here. And it's going to be like, it's going to be so cool to read through this whole thing after the fact of like, here's all the pieces. Here's the people who like influence those pieces in this. And here's kind of like the shape of a world that we were all building together. And this, I mean, this is the kind of thing like, I mean, Zaza, you mentioned like doing D&D and stuff. Like if somebody wants to take this world and go like make a D&D world out of it or something, go for it. Curse immortalization is a strong inversion, theologically coherent. The same mechanism, soul preserved in stone, because punishment when applied to someone whose continued presence is considered harmful, dangerous, or deserves suffering. The conditions for containment to hold spiritual weight are important. Probably not just any statue counts as a curse. I think it's location. I mean, I guess here we have the potential of ritual, material choice, orientation, location. And we have decided location matters in some way. We just haven't, or we've decided location matters and orientation matters. I keep on picturing like an undersea shrine. Probably from the one from the OG Final Fantasy, Kraken's Shrine, right? And like a specific room within that shrine or something, like, or potentially like underground instead of underwater even. Of like, it's somewhere deep. So I'm going to go ahead and include that note. The location of a statue below ground is worth considering. Perhaps below ground is offensive. I keep picturing some of the trapped contained statues being an underground cave or temple or shrine instead of temple. And above ground is generally considered respectful. But perhaps not always. Orientation would shape this question. And then what was the other thought I thought about? It was ritual and material choice, which I haven't really, like, we haven't gone into a lot of like the crafting of this sort of thing. Like we haven't even gotten back to the AI. Like this started with the whole idea of like bringing like life into these AI robots or whatever. And then I probably should actually specify that. No, I specified they're made of metal. Gosh, no, we've gone through so many threads and stuff. My brain is just all over the place in so many different, like I've got fingers in so many different pies right now in my head, you know? Who has authority to curse someone this way? Is it a religious office, legal one, or both? Can a curse statue be undone? And if so, by a human, is that considered mercy or sacrilege? I think that the location is likely the best representation. What did I even just establish for the cursed statue? How did I phrase that? Oh. Yeah. Okay. So that was just the people who were cursed to live on. Because that would allow a curse to be broken. So the statues, which probably means the statues specifically represent the life itself. Also, one thing I didn't think about with the cult before is that in this world we have the caretakers or whoever in the graveyards, these religious leaders who can hear the statues speak, which means that the cult leader being made into several statues implies that his followers, perhaps across like multiple areas, can better hear his voice. So the statues are probably primarily representing life, their form. On the cult leader statues, considering the graveyard caretakers / pastors, the additional statues might be gathered together to enhance the cult leader's voice in death. Air quote on voice. As a literal thing to the true believers, to the believers who can hear it. Or might be gathered together, or they might be scattered across different locations. A church analog. Churches, not necessarily. Church is not necessarily in the traditional sense. Sorry, there's like a lot of verbal thought forming in my mind as this is all coming together right now. Like there's a lot of implications there, and I kind of like this idea that there's like a cult leader at work as well, and this just because like okay, so we've got like our setting is this whole, there's this like modern question of these AI robots who've been given life because of the silicon chips having quartz, or because the silicon is quartz. And so there's this whole like debate surrounding them. You have the cult leader, and the question is like, was the cult leader the original one to inscribe one of these AI into being? These middle AI robots into being. Which makes it even more interesting is that like this might suggest that the shepherds are cultists. And I don't want that to be the case. Perhaps the cult emerged as its own splinter with a different belief from both the shepherds and the people who believe that the AI are abominations. I don't know what that third thread would be. That their viewpoint would be. Honor dead. Yeah, there we go. We nearly got Zaza's gnome Warforged in here, and that would have not belonged in here. The open question here is real theological stakes. If you sculpt a form that has never existed, a god, mythical creature, or composite being, are you housing something that already exists elsewhere? Are you making something new? The second possibility suggests that inscribers have generative power, not just preservational power. They don't just capture the soul, they might call it into being or create the conditions for a new form to exist. This probably terrifies some people and is considered the highest form of the craft by others. It also raises the question of whether a badly made statue of a god accidentally creates a malformed divine presence. Gosh, man, can you imagine? I mean, I guess there's plenty of people who, like, view different aspects of their life as a curse or something, and they wonder why God cursed them. So, like, maybe it's not as, like, abstract a concept as I think it is. But can you imagine being, like, literally created by a being and knowing you were created? And, like, your face is lopsided? So, regarding the extinct species statues, preservation of memory as a typical case is clean. The statue holds what's left of that form, not an individual soul necessarily, but the shape of the kind of being that no longer walks. Whether that shape still has something in it, or whether it's an empty vessel is probably theologically contested. Some would say the last of a species passed something into any stone made in their likeness before the end. Others would say, without living exemplars, the statue is memorial only, which is an interesting, like, potential divergence. The Warrior Stone is generally a surprisingly impressive point in this world. In ours, it's just tactile comfort, you rubber it soothes. Here, you're making sustained physical contact with something that has a soul. The act of rubbing becomes reciprocal in a way that user may not fully consider. Actually, hold up. With that, okay, in this world, rocks have souls. And I thought about worry rocks. Like, I've got one right here in front of me. This nice little, I forget what kind of sandstone this is, right? But, like, in this world, this guy has a soul. So is me rubbing it, like, non-consensual? I know we're normally a family-friendly stream on this channel, but the question had to be asked, right? Are you drawing comfort from the stone? Is something passing between you? Like, is it literally the soul, like, another soul comforting yours? Which is a really interesting thing. Stone also draws to statues that comfort the morning. The belief is probably that souls are touching in a profound way. Over time, a worry stone worn smooth by decades of handling, what is that exchange accumulated? There might be a folk belief around warrior stones that isn't fully endorsed by the formal tradition, or the formal tradition might have specific teachings about appropriate and inappropriate contact with unshaped stones. What was I just saying? What was I just saying, chat? My immediate thought, like, oh, the warrior stone, man, is that consensual? Like, here you go. It's what the AI is here saying, man. Either way, the object becomes strange in a productive way. An unfinished statue, the soul was being called or housed, and the process stopped. Is it caught between states? Did the inscription begin but not complete? The inscriber's death mid-project is probably considered a specific kind of tragedy. Wait, hold up. Okay, unfinished state. Yeah, so, okay, if it's the question then with an unfinished one is at what point does the... So, like, okay, a stone starts with a soul, is the premise. So you have a big old chunk of marble. You start to shape it, but you don't finish. What does that mean about the soul? What does that mean about the state of the soul in the unfinished thing? And also there's a question of how the inscriber's death impacts it. Like, does the inscriber become, like, trapped in it, for example? Is it considered to be broken down? And I think the answer is that unfinished statues should be destroyed. So I think this idea okay, if an inscriber while shaping a stone the statue should probably be destroyed. it should be perceived. How was I just thinking of it? I had it in my head just now. There was like a specific reason or logic I was thinking that, because it's almost like saying like there's something like trapped in the incompleteness. So I can't articulate it. Something is trapped because of that unfinished state. For whatever reason, destruction is correct in this case. I think that's something that like needs to be a rule, and I don't know why yet. And it's something that might come together later. Remains of destroyed statues. If destruction is soul destruction, what are the fragments? Shards of a person. Whether they're treated as sacred remains, dangerous remnants, or spiritually inert rubble probably varies. Someone almost certainly collects them. Someone almost certainly considers that collection an act of violence or mourning, which is an interesting path to follow, but I'm trying to narrow this back down. Gosh, we have what, like 6 points I've already gone to, and we're still scrolling down. Replication, taboo, and the cult of copies. The taboo makes sense from the first principles. The soul is specific. Replicating the statue dilutes, distorts, or fractures what it contains. One vessel, one soul. Replication violates integrity. The cult that violates this taboo is immediately interesting. A dead leader represented in multiple states. The soul is disproportionately present, overrepresented. Whether the copies are identical or varied. Like did I just create Voldemort in this, you know? There's the question, kind of, almost. I'm going to try to wind down. So I'm going to try to skip over things and get us, or maybe I should just make sure I end this particular message with creating the document rather than addressing the threads. Varied copies suggest something stranger. The leader captured multiple moments or imagined across the states they never inhabited, which reads less like amplification and more like obsession with totality. They want to contain everything the leader was or could have been, which also, you know, suggests a fragmentation, but it also might suggest a, like, okay, if you capture somebody across like statues of somebody in different eras of their life in this world, it's not just that you're capturing like their soul and their memory. It's an overrepresentation of permanence. It's almost solidifying everything that they were rather than like the sum of what they were. And I don't know where that thread necessarily leads, but it's an interesting thought. Anyway, I'm gonna wrap this down. I need to conclude here for now, so please build, or please write the world building document. This thing's gonna be massive, man. This thing's gonna be massive. I wonder how many pages this is gonna come out to. I also wonder what like the structure is going to look like, because like there's so many different areas we've covered, and so many different ways to like look at this thing. Before I write one thing, you mentioned an unresolved third viewpoint of the cult. Neither shepherds nor abolitionists. You didn't land on what it is. I'll mark it as open in the document rather than inventing a position. Also, the feeling that you couldn't articulate about the unfinished statue, something is trapped, or record it in your language rather than resolving it, since that's an accurate state of the idea. Okay, so thanks everyone for being here tonight. Like this was, gosh, this was a journey. Sorry, my brain is like very much worn down. We just spent 3 hours darn near crafting. Like, the interesting thing about these world building kind of sessions is like how unevenly worlds come together, but like something like a really interesting idea coalesced in a lot of really interesting ways. And I know like Solitary Guard viewed the split of this of like his interpretation of this world is that the souls literally communicate, that they are literally real. I've intentionally left the question vague. I think Zayza took it literally as well with the suggestion to make like it a sort of like cross-dimensional reincarnation. And anybody who's been like lurking throughout this process, also if anybody's lurking on YouTube, I apologize, I do not have YouTube chat up. We are also over on Twitch, but thank you for being on YouTube if you are. There's just this like really interesting idea that's been getting circled, and I hope somebody, I have no idea what I'm going to do with this, if it's just going to be like posted in the Discord and that's just going to be that, or if like something in this is going to like spur an idea in the future. And then like kind of going back to like the conversation with Brooks at the start of stream, like my feeling being inside a world building session like this with AI, like, I like the idea that AI can like point down possible avenues worth exploring. And I absolutely hate when it's like, this is what you should do. And there was like a small bit of like, this is what you should do. And it's a really fine tonight. And it's a really fine line to try to draw. But I definitely, you know, I mean, that's going to be something that we're going to be debating for the next like 10 plus, 10, 20 years anyway. And I think it's interesting to kind of like bring it up now and look at what it looks like now and what it means now. I know a lot of people have very strong opinions. And I thought this would be a fun way both to address that question, but also to show like the way that I like go through a creation process. And now it's like, it's so like in a situation setting like this with AI, it's so incredibly fast. It's so unbelievably fast. Gadzooks, welcome on back. And like, it's weird to think about writing and creativity even a decade ago, because like a decade ago, like, okay, I didn't do a lot of like research deep dives here. Like we covered like the Egyptian cats. We covered the statues, the cat and dog statues in front of like Eastern temples. We covered, what was the other thing? Like the quick check of like the difference between like mineral and metal that brought up quartz, right? And that quartz idea is the kind of thing that like really sticks out to me, because I really like the idea that quartz, like especially amethyst, like I got the amethyst. Can we get the where do I have? Can we see my amethyst on the shelf? The amethyst is right there. It can't be seen very well from here. Let me go grab it. Like, oh, did we go through the playlist another time? Oh, no, I don't have my thing. Oh, we did go through the playlist another time, though. Oh, I just skipped to, well, I skipped to whatever. So, like, okay. We've got amethyst here, right? Ooh, this shows up so nicely in the thing. Like, I love amethyst. It is arguably my favorite stone. Where's my... Take us back into here. That thing's still, yeah, that thing's still going. No surprise there. And like, I love the idea of like, okay, so like, imagine like this is like my chest or something. Like it's here, and then like the rest of me is stone or something, like a statue, right? And this represents like a glimpse into the heart or something. Like that idea was like worth this whole session for me, because it just like, it suggests something. I don't know what exactly it is, but it's something big. And I've got to wonder, like, you know, in the past, like each of those deep dives would have been like, okay, I need to make a Google search. I need to find the web pages to read. Like sometimes Wikipedia covers good stuff, sometimes it doesn't. But having AI to do like research more quickly is one of those things that like it's like, who else remembers being back in like high school and college and trying to do research for a research paper and trying to find sources and documents that like, gosh, I hadn't even thought about how AI must be influencing like research papers for students, right? Like back in the day, do you remember how much of a pain in the butt it was to try to find something in a research paper that supported your position? And now that's got to be like a 5-second, I mean, it takes a few minutes definitely, but like it's such a quick thing. And so the, okay, so unfortunately this one is being written for me as the author, which we have some time away, but it should be, oh no, it should still be pretty clear and readable to me. How long did this end up being? I'm just kind of curious. 13 pages, right? Like, we've got the whole, like, the stone soul, nature of ensoulment, which goes over, it didn't, yeah, it was talking about the quartz specifically, because that's the main thing. Like, you've got, like, this stuff, you've got that stuff. Inscription being the act that matters. Like, all the specifics and stuff about like stuff we know about the statues and stuff, along with also like these clear notes of like, these were things, because obviously I crafted like what was important to me. And so the document reflects that. So like how mortal biological life is valued relative to the purpose of stone is one of those things that has like profound implications on this document. Nebby doesn't recall having that skill issue. AI doing something for you as something that actively hallucinates and gives bunk info, has trash education as we know it. I'm saying even using it to like just search for like, hey, I'm looking for a document talking about this, and then you check it yourself. I'm not talking about having AI write it for you. I'm talking about literally just having AI point you to an actual thing and an actual source that says something. The hallucinations I'm holding is a separate issue. And like gosh, man. The funny about hallucinations, I keep on thinking about the same example with hallucinations, and this probably hasn't happened, but the way I think about AI hallucinations is like that kid bullshitting a paper in high school. Like, AI is really good at bullshitting in a lot of ways, right? Kind of like that kid we all knew who like 10 minutes before class would decide to write their paper and somehow still get a B on it like every time. But then occasionally they would just completely like make something up and get caught. And like for whatever reason, the example in my mind is like, oh, I need to write a paper on Star Trek. Star Trek refers to the Pioneer Trek West, where the pioneers would often trek into the night, therefore trekking under the stars. And they would gather around their campfire and they would also tell stories. And these stories were the stories of Star Trek. You know, like, hallucinations are just so funny sometimes on like a basic level. But I mean, it's also the distinction, Nebby, of like not knowing what to say. Like the ability of AI to cross-reference and synthesize things is just such a like game-changing experience when it's done accurately. But yeah, so the document has like so much just like good content out of what came out of like everything tonight, along with just kind of like directions to possibly go in the future. If you don't know what to say, that is a skill issue. I don't think I agree. Like it's partly a skill issue, but it's partly also like, I don't like. Here's one of the nuances that's like been really hitting me lately. Is I've been thinking about the distinction between LLMs and image generation, especially since I forget what the name of the image generator was that went and produced the like the fake DBZ fight, but explicitly like every frame of it is essentially stuff that was taken directly from like actual footage of DBZ Super, where like LLMs have the ability. And the technology is not quite there yet, but to like synthesize information more effectively than like anything else. Whereas image generation right now is still at a state where it's just trying to like copy other things explicitly or much more explicitly. Oh yeah, we have the computer at the bottom. Did we only have 5 people contribute to this? Thank you, Solitary Guard, who contributed several points. Bubbles, Alice, Game Enjoyer, and Zaza, who all helped us get where the end result of this was. And then I'm going to see if I can figure out how to, like, I've never uploaded a file directly into like a server channel. So we will, I'll get that figured out. Let's see who's online and see who we can raid. Do I have my, where is all my stuff? So once again, thank you all for being here tonight. I don't have a strict plan on when I will stream next, or if I will stream next even. We will just we'll see how things go. Right now I'm kind of one thing I probably want to do for a stream, and I haven't bought it yet, but I'm thinking of buying a TCG shop simulator or whatever it's called and reflecting on my experience working at a card shop. I think our raid tonight is going to We're gonna head into some indie game goodness. I hope that you want a... Oh, Indie's not currently the sexy bunny ping tuber. But we're gonna raid into the Indie Maniac, who is currently playing 7 Nights Later. I probably just started by the looks of it, or is possibly wrapping up. If he's wrapping it up, we gotta try to get him to play Pineapple on Pizza. Gotta make Pineapple on Pizza happen. Alrighty. Please stick around for the raid, even if you plan to peace out afterwards. Let's go ahead and share the love with others as others share the love with us. Let me try to remember how my raid... Do we get both the... We do. We get both of them. All right. If you are subscribed, please copy-paste the raid message with the Sparkbomb logo and Sparkbot emotes. If you are not subscribed, please copy-paste the raid message with the Dino Dance emote. Please at least get the raid message posted over in the new chat, even if you plan to leave. And of course, all of you have a good night, and I will see you probably in the Discord. I'm not used to seeing this. Oh, did I just leave the... I completely forgot I had the background cam up the entire time. Have a good night, everybody.